Number 5. St. Clair's fingernails and her hair. Now, some people say that fingernails and hair continue to grow after the body passes away. This is commonly repeated, but actually not true, because rather it's the skin around the fingernails retracting that gives the illusion that the fingernails are still growing. I thought I would just toss in a totally unrelated fun fact you can use at a party. These fingernails aren't growing at all, because they're not attached to anybody, and they're kept in a glass box alongside some of St. Clair's wonderful curls, like the world's worst and possibly stinkiest time capsule. Now, St. Clair was often overshadowed by her more famous mentor, Francis of Assisi, but St. Clair was her own woman, accomplished in her own right. She founded her own order of nuns, the Poor Clares. Inspired by Francis's teachings when she was a teenager, she renounced the world and founded an order based on the ideals of extreme poverty and contemplation. I should probably look into this order because being extremely broke and contemplating being extremely broke is about 99% of what I do. The order spread popularity and houses of Poor Clares were established far away from her home convent in Assisi. Now, it's said that part of what made St. Clair's decision to give up the worldly life so inspiring was that not only was she blessed to be born into a family of great wealth, but oh va va voom, St. Clair was a real stunner. Now, you know, the depictions we have to work with may not look like much, but they called her the first Jenner for her luscious lips and flowing locks. As proof of her devotion, Francis trimmed her beautiful extravagant hair as a physical manifestation of rejecting her former vain existence. As you can see, I'm not quite there yet. I'm still quite happy with my vain, disgusting hair. Now, someone down the line managed to get a hold of St. Clair's hair and fingernails. Maybe they were just sweeping the barber room floor. These treasures, for lack of a better word, were kept and encased in a reliquary at the basilica named in her honor. This also contains a rock crystal flask with her fingernails. Really not sure why anyone felt they needed to keep that. I'm not sure how holy these are, but hey, I'm not a saint or a bishop or a pope or any of that stuff. I'm just a YouTuber and I'm barely that even. But if you want to hear more of me narrating some of these strange and peculiar parts of the big globe we share, Top 5 Scary is the place to be. We got a little something for everyone. So make sure you click on through, like this video, subscribe, and hit that little bell, and we can keep on bringing you screams every single day, twice a day, and then some. But do that at the end of this video, okay? We got way more weird Catholic relics coming up for you. Number 4, Papal Hearts. You know, they say some people wear their hearts on their sleeves, and some people collect 22 hearts in marble urns inside a beautiful reliquary. We all have our hobbies. We all collect things. Just make sure those hearts are still in their original packaging, otherwise, you know, they're totally worthless. Well, these aren't just regular old hearts. These are the hearts of 22 former popes. Obviously they're former popes if their hearts are, obviously. At the Church of Santi Vincenzo e Anastasio a Trivia. Oof, that's a mouthful, we're not saying that again. You can find the sealed hearts of 22 popes in marble urns for all to appreciate. The popes are listed to the left of the altar, with the oldest coming in all the way from the 15th century with Sixtus V to the fresh and still beating heart of Leo XIII in 1903. Now, this custom of separating a pope's organs from the corpse sounds a bit strange, or a bit Egyptian, like they might mummify them. And then this process was called praecordia, and was done to prevent decay while funeral arrangements were made, and just to test a little bit if they were worried the Pope was going to reanimate. The tradition started up in the 14th century when it was established that when a Pope passed away, they would be mourned for 9 days. 9 days, with suffrage massages being said each day. They borrowed this little schedule from the Byzantines, who observed deaths of their emperors in a very similar manner. Really taken a while off. They took a whole pay period to mourn the loss, and then you dry those tears right up, get back to work. Now, this was all the rage for popes of yesteryear, very trendy, very in fashion. But Pope Pius X in 1914 had a change of heart when he expressly forbade it in his burial and will. He said, "Don't do any of that weird stuff to me." Those were his exact words, if you can believe it. Now, since then, his successors have all agreed and have all done the same. But who's to say? I feel this could be coming back in fashion. Pope Francis, how you feeling? You gotta listen to your heart on this one. Number 3, the Holy Souls of Purgatory. Purgatory, in Catholic belief, is kind of like a giant waiting room while the upper management figures out just where exactly they're going to find a good spot that's best for you. Well, that's simplifying it a bit, obviously. The soul is thought to be stranded in purgatory until it atones for its earthly sins, but you can hurry the process up just a little bit if your loved ones back on Earth are praying for you. In the back of the Chiesa del Sacro Cuore del Suffragio del Piccolo Museo del Purgatory, or Museum of the Holy Souls in Purgatory, holds a collection of relics that have been singed by the hands of the souls of those trapped in purgatory. These burned handprints are believed to be the souls trying to communicate that their loved ones need to pray harder. I don't know about you, but I would definitely start praying real hard if burned handprints started showing up in my books, but I would be praying for an exorcist, more likely. Now, this is kind of interesting, and I didn't even know this. Purgatory isn't even mentioned directly in the Bible, but the concept of purgatory dates back to the 11th century. This notion that trapped souls needed to be freed came from a story told to the Abbot Odilo of Cluny by a monk returning from the Holy Land. He told this story about how this ship had been wrecked, that he'd been cast ashore on a mysterious island, and a hermit who lived on the island related his own story of a chasm from which screams of trapped souls and demonic flames rose and ravaged. He told of how the demons would complain about losing souls when your loved ones would pray for their behalf. So November 2nd was established as All Souls Day. Everybody, all the souls. Where it was believed that prayers by the living could help get all of those trapped dead in purgatory loose. You know, it's kind of like that one episode of The Simpsons where the town comes together to get Bart out of the well. It's a similar enough concept, you know. They sang a song, you pray, souls get out, Bart gets out, pretty much one and the same. This particular collection of burned relics in particular, though, was collected when Victor Jouet, the missionary behind the collection, experienced a fire that burned part of the original suffragio, leaving behind a scorched image of a face that he believed was a trapped soul. Now, again, just me personally, but if I saw a face burned into one of my possessions, I would move entirely, call an exorcist, be putting salt circles around my feet for the rest of my life, but I appreciate what he did too. Number 2, the Santa Maria della Concesione Crypts. Whew, my Italian is not as good as it should be. Inside the Santa Maria della Concesione crypts, as many as 4,000 friars lie here. Well, lie is probably the wrong word, as they hang here is probably a more accurate description, as these 4,000 bodies are hanging from the rafters, decorating the space of every inch of the church. Now, it might seem a bit grim or beautiful, depending on your twisted point of view. We're a scary channel, I ain't gonna judge you. There's a certain chic to it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they have to spend a few hundred a month on keeping air fresheners and incense just running all the time there. Now, you might reasonably be wondering, hey, why do they hang bones from the wall like they're throwing a Halloween party and no one went to the store to get actual decorations and they had to make do with what they had? Well, they're not just festive. The practice dates back from the 16th century when the Capuchin friars, not named after the monkey but because of the hoods they wore, left the friary of St. Bonaventure to come live at Santa Maria della Concesione. They were ordered by the Pope's brother at the time to bring the remains of deceased friars with them to their new home so that all the Capuchins could lie together. With a huge amount of bodies on their hands, the brothers decided to get a little fun with it and decorate the walls of the crypts with their bones as a way of reminding them that death comes for all of them. Surely there's a slightly easier way to remind you of the ever-present mortality that hangs over us than literally hanging a bunch of pelvises to the buttresses, but what do I know? A plaque in the crypt reads, "What you are now, we once were. What we are now, you shall be." Which is grim. No way around it. The crypt contains a little bit of everything inside you. Crypt of skulls, lovely load of leg bones, and the star of the show is definitely the crypt of pelvises. Oh, make sure you get a photo in there. Make sure you grab a fridge magnet from the Pelvis Room gift shop. And number 1, St. John the Baptist's many heads. They say 2 heads are better than 1, which might be proof of what a great man St. John the Baptist is, because no one can seem to agree how many heads the guy actually had. The saint's head was supposedly brought back from Constantinople in 1206 by the crusader Wallen de Satan, but it seems this happened more than a few times, since 3 different shrines across the globe all claim to have the original head of St. John the Baptist, and no one's able to clear this up anytime soon. St. John was a forerunner of Jesus Christ, and the New Testament says that John was beheaded by Herod around 28 CE as a punishment for criticizing his recent divorce. Yeesh. Paintings of the beheading depicted on a silver platter, which is a nice Nice way to get a severed head, I think. I don't know if I ever want a head delivered to me, but if I had to, I would want it on a silver platter. According to the legend, there really was a silver platter his head was delivered on that made its way to Constantinople or Istanbul, but was sold by the Crusaders in order to pay for his travels back. John's head was on display in the Amiens Cathedral up until the French Revolution, where they confiscated all church treasures, and it would eventually return home in 1816, then going all the way back to Rome from Greek monks who brought it to a shrine decorated with beautiful stained glass, one panel depicting the head on a silver platter. You think you wouldn't want to remember that. Well, here's where the trouble comes in. A German museum in Munich also takes great pride in having St. John's head. The Munich Residence Museum contains a bunch of other holy relics, but their most prized is the alleged St. John's head, although no one really knows how it got there. This skull is wrapped in cloth and heavily interred with gems. Now 2 would be impressive, but St. John's got a crowd worth of heads because he's got 3. His last head can be found in Damascus, Syria in the Umayyad Mosque, one of the oldest and largest mosques in the world. This relic, also not exposed, wrapped in a cloth, and is currently located in a shrine dedicated to the saint. So will the real John the Baptist please stand up? Or do all 3 of these heads actually really belong to him, and he had to be beheaded 3 times for it to take? You know what, don't answer that. I'm not sure if that's something I really want to know. Number 5. Oliver Plunkett's head. Now in the other 2 videos, we talked about the head of St. Catherine of Siena, and we also talked about St. John the Baptist and how many heads he may or may not have had scattered across the world, and I'm not one to break tradition, so I thought for part 3 I would include a 3rd holy saintly severed head, this time belonging to Oliver Plunkett. A notable difference between the 2 other severed heads is that this one is probably the most disgusting one we've included on these lists. I know these are all holy relics, but let me just say, out of context, this is absolutely horrifying and looks like it's straight out of a grindhouse horror movie that you'd find in a dirty basket somewhere. Oliver Plunkett, before becoming a head, was an Irish Catholic archbishop who was a victim of the Popish plot. Now if you're not up to date on your Catholicism, that's a whole other video worth of explaining. I don't know much about the Popish plot, I'm not the guy to do that for you. But the short version is that it was a conspiracy falsely alleging that there was a plot against the Protestant king Charles II. Oliver Plunkett happened to end up on the receiving end of something really bad. Namely, he was executed, which is pretty bad. But they really went out of their way to destroy Oliver Plunkett, his public image, his body. They called his praising of the Roman Catholic Church high treason, and his punishment was a slow and arduous death. He was hung, drawn, and finally quartered. And just in case there were any odds of him pulling through on a miraculous recovery, as a final effort, they yeeted his head into a fire, where it was rescued by a friend of Plunkett. I'd like to think I would do that for my friends. Well, after being recovered, the head was rescued and stored hidden away in a nunnery, eventually brought to Ireland in 1995, where he's now kept on display in the National Shrine to the Saint. He was canonized for his troubles, and he is the first new Irish saint in about 700 years. It's high time for some new blood, I think. So, you can go, you can pay your respects to him, and maybe offer him some skin cream, because that skin's looking a little dry. And if you're looking for more creepy videos on weird relics or all sorts of strange things, Top 5 Scary has all of that and then some. If there's something scary, the odds are pretty good we've got a video or 2 on it. And if you haven't already, subscribe, hit that bell for more videos every single day. But do that at the end of this video, okay? We got way more weird Catholic relics coming up for you. Number 4. St. Teresas Hand. Now, if you've watched our other videos on this subject, then no doubt you're already very familiar with the practice of making remnants of saints into relics. Now, something that's directly from a saint is called a first-class relic. That means it's something that came off of their body, you know? Their hair, their fingernails, a vial of their fluids, or in the case of the lovely St. Teresa, her whole hand. Encased in a beautiful, ornate golden reliquary with gems all over the knuckles, and the editors are goofing off because that's just a picture of the Infinity Gauntlet from Avengers Endgame. Wait, that's what it really looks like. Yeah, it seems that Marvel Studios was more than inspired by the incorruptible St. Teresa's hand when designing the weapon that would give Thanos the power to wipe out half the universe. Throw a comparison pic of them side by side, they're almost indistinguishable. I'm not 100% certain if there's any symbolism or connection there, but I'm sure Saint Teresa would love to know she was involved. She was a huge fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all the things they do. When Saint Teresa of Avila passed away, the sisters of her convent buried her with the hopes of keeping her holy body with them. 9 months later, she was exhumed, only to discover that her body was intact. She hadn't decayed at all. That's why they thought she was incorruptible. Now, I'm not sure I totally follow the logic here, but after they discovered her body was incorruptible, they took her hand off and put it into this golden infinity gauntlet thing, as a way of inviting people to get closer to God through the saint's body. Now, this might not seem appealing to you, but there's a surprising demand for this relic. Near the end of the Spanish Civil War, General Francisco Franco had the hand removed from the convent and allegedly kept it close by, and if some of the wilder rumors are true, he would keep it by his pillow for good luck. You really gotta hand it to him, he was a devout follower of the faith. Today, you can find the hand in Iglesia de Nuestra Señora de la Merced in Ronda, Andalusia, and you don't even have to rip a stone out of the Vision's forehead to get a good look at this gauntlet. Number 3. The Veil of Veronica. Now, on these lists of holy relics, we've had all sorts of strange things. We've had fingernails, teeth, dried up hands, we got milk coming up later. All things that have come from the body. Well, this next one is no different. It's the Veil of Veronica, and to put it gently, it's a sweat rag that's a few thousand years old. Probably one of the most pungent odors on the planet. Imagine every gym locker room you've ever been in times 1,000. When Jesus carried the cross, bruised and beaten, there was one person among the crowds who saw fit to help him out a little. Veronica wiped Jesus' face with this rag, and miraculously his face transferred onto the rag like it was silly putty on the funny papers. Now, as an outsider, I thought this is what the Shroud of Turin was. That was the wrapping used to wrap Jesus after his death, so the thing I'm learning is that Jesus left an imprint of his face on just about any surface he touched. You give him a hug, have his face on the shoulder of your shirt for the rest of your life as a sacred artifact. Now, the Veil of Veronica is hard to nail down hard, concrete facts on. It's never been officially canonized as a relic of the church, and is only alleged to exist. It's claimed to be owned at St. Peter's in Rome, although this particular relic is not on public display anywhere. Probably for the best. Honestly, don't know if I want to see a 2,000-year-old sweat stain. The ones underneath my shirts are bad enough. Now, it might sound like I'm being disparaging, referring to this relic multiple times as a sweat rag or a sweat stain, but I would like to offer this. The Latin name for the veil is sudarium. Sudarium literally translates to sweat cloth, so even the official churchly terminology for this relic acknowledges that it's just a stinky rag that has some sweat on it, but a holy stinky rag that has some sweat on it. Number 2, Mother Mary's milk. We're gonna do our best to get through this, I promise. Mother's milk might be my favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers album, it's my favorite character on The Boys, and it might just be one of the oddest relics on a series of odd relics that's all the way to part 3. Took a lot of restraint to not put this in the first 2, but we're on part 3, so here it is now. As incredibly odd as it may sound, the Virgin Mary's milk is considered a relic of the Catholic Church. I hope they've been keeping that in the fridge, lest it spoils. Does holy milk spoil? Is everything I've said in this video profoundly heretical? There is a church called the Church of Milk Grotto, built outside Bethlehem. The history goes that the Madonna and child had taken refuge in this cave, and while she was feeding, milk spilled outwards and blessed the stone of the cave, turning it completely white. Now, the church serves as a popular shrine for women who are struggling with fertility, who hope that the lasting aura and presence of the Virgin Mary will bless them. There's a legend that goes with it. Saint Bernard, the saint, not the big dog that has his tongue hanging out, was devoted to the Mother Mary. And one day, he was praying at a statue of the Madonna, and he asked it to give him some sign, some proof that she was a mother. I guess the statue has like an odd sense of humor because it sprayed milk onto Saint Bernard. Depending on the variation of the story, either his eye or in his mouth. I saw a lot of really interesting paintings depicting this scene, and editors, I hope you're having so much fun trying to find photos for this one. I am so sorry. Truly, rest in peace your search history. In the Middle Ages, vials of the milk were sold and transported all over Europe. For what purpose, I could not tell you. These days, the Church of Milk Grotto sells a limestone powder made from the stone walls of the grotto, meant to be dissolved in a drink and consumed. Kinda like Crystal Light, but it's holy milk. Probably heals all that ails, and it's a good source of calcium, perhaps. And number 1, the Holy Preuse. This is gonna be the one that takes the channel down. You have no idea the restraint it's taken me to only be bringing this up now in part 3 of Strange Relics. this is probably the strangest relic of them all. We'll do our best to discuss this with reverence and also somehow figure out how to stay within content guidelines. Editors, best of luck. When Jesus was born, on his 8th day, a small piece of his skin was removed in a traditional ritual performed on Jewish men when they're born. Okay? Are you sort of following along with what I'm saying here? This particular part of the body that I can't quite mention that was removed at birth was an immensely holy relic to the Catholic Church called the Holy Preuse. Now, the very bizarre part regarding the history of the Holy Preuse isn't just that it exists at all, it's how much trouble one bit of skin would cause. You see, the Preuse first pops up in the year 800, when Charlemagne gave it to Pope Leo III on December 25th, making it one of the oddest Christmas gifts ever given in human history. From here, it stayed until 1527. Now, when Rome was sacked, a German soldier stole the Preuse and tried to keep it for himself, until it was eventually recovered again and became the centerpiece of the village of Calcutta, where it was seen as the most exciting thing to happen in a while. It was like a celebrity showed up to the village. It was this great, big, important deal. They had a part of the body of the Savior. All manner of miracles are reported to have been the result of the Holy Preuse. However, several other churches, villages, priests all claimed that they had the true Holy Preuse, and any other ones you might have heard of out there were false. This problem became rampant, and in the early 1900s, the church wanted to wash their hands of the Holy Preuse entirely and outright forbade any discussion of it in church matters. It was actually an excommunicable offense to so much as bring up the Preuse, meaning this video is pure heresy. In 1983, the Preuse was stolen from the church in Calcutta. Where is it now? Where did it go? Absolutely no one knows. No one's fessed up. You know, if you took it, I think now's a good time to just admit you did it. But if they're ever looking for a plot line for a third National Treasure movie, I have an absolutely amazing idea for something Nicolas Cage could steal. Number 5. St. Catherine's head. Coming up first on our list of strange artifacts that the Catholic Church has hidden away is the severed, mummified head of the revered St. Catherine of Siena. And you wouldn't really expect there to be a severed head kept out on display, but it is an important head, I've come to understand. When she was young, St. Catherine had a vision of Jesus on a throne surrounded by saints. Afterwards, she devoted her life to Catholicism and she gave herself to the nunnery, cut her hair, scalded herself, and took a vow of celibacy. At 28, Catherine was said to have received the stigmata when 5 red rays shot out of the crucifix she was praying to and pierced her hands, her feet, and her heart. But these were far from the only miracles attributed to the lovely St. Catherine, however. She was said to be seen levitating once during prayer, and even once a priest said he saw a Holy Communion fly from his hand directly into her mouth. Now, I will be honest, that does make her sound a bit like a saintly golden retriever, but okay. Catherine would pass at the young age of 33 and would be canonized a century later. If you don't know, that's a fancy word for being made into a saint post-mortem. While she passed in Rome, there was some disagreement as to where the young saint should be laid to rest eternally. Her hometown of Siena quite wanted her body back. Her spiritual leader, Raymond of Capua, knew he wouldn't really be able to smuggle her entire body past guards in Rome, so he elected to just take her head in a bag, which normally would be terrifying behavior, but it's good here. The story goes that when the guards intercepted Raymond, he prayed to Catherine, and when they looked inside his sack, they found naught but a collection of rose petals and not a severed head. Her final miracle. Now, the head was placed in a reliquary. That's a difficult word to say, especially on a teleprompter. The head was placed in a reliquary where it still remains today, and you can go and pray to it, and I promise it's not gonna blink or anything at you, even though it looks like it just might. And if you're looking for way more stories of creepy relics locked away, haunted object, cursed things, cryptids, conspiracies, aliens, the whole scary 9 yards, Top 5 Scary has all of that and then some. So hit that little bell, hit hit subscribe, and make sure you do not miss a single thing. Do it after this video, okay? We got way more creepy things locked away coming up for you right now. Number 4, the Grand Grimoire. Our next entry has been formally referred to as the Gospel of Satan, and is said to be a cursed book whose knowledge had to be sealed away to protect humanity. So this might be the most deadly book ever published after Hop on Pop. The Grand Grimoire, who is said to have been penned by a priest in the 16th century, who was possessed by a litany of demons who compelled the man to put their knowledge to paper. Acting as a scribe for these demons, the man wrote everything they knew about dark incantations, spells, instructions on how to cast rituals, ways to bind a demon to you, to make it your little minion and do your bidding. Wait, a demon gave instructions on how it wants to be bound to a human? To serve humans? Freaky little demon. That's not all too. There is a step-by-step recipe for a little necromancy if you're down to dabble in some dark arts and make some bones dance to your rhythm. The book really covers all the fun stuff you have been told not to do. It's not just brimstone and hellfire neither. There's rituals to help manipulate luck, how to conduct a seance, and I actually think this is adorable. There's even ways to make people love you in there. But dating tip from old Tay, if you need a demon's help to make them like you, it might not be the strongest relationship. So just a heads up. Now if all of this is sounding super appealing, and I don't blame you, I played a necromancer in Skyrim, I want to make the bones raise. Just know that this book is considered high treason. Even so much as cracking the spine is considered equivalent to selling your soul. So, you know, maybe hold off on that Amazon order for a bit. Also, I'm pretty sure the copy they're selling on Amazon is not the original, because due to the book's cursed reputation, the original copy is said to be locked away in the Vatican's secret archives, and I'm sorry, but no matter how many times you ask, they're not gonna let you look at it, even if you swear you're just taking a little peek just to look at the illustrations and maybe the dedications. They're gonna keep it locked up. I know. Number 3, Hyacinth of Caesarea. Our next entry is the Bones of Hyacinth of Caesarea, another Catholic mummy. I'm starting to think there's more Catholic mummies than there were Egyptian ones. Incredibly ornate and gorgeous, the Bones of Hyacinth look like something out of one of the Indiana Jones sequels, rather than like a real thing you can go and see, but I promise you they are totally extant. On the grounds of the Fürstenfeld Abbey reside the relics of 2 saints. Now, these aren't just like a toenail or a tongue, and more on that later, but these are full-on science class skeletons dressed to the 9 in gold and jewels, encrusted in more diamonds and rubies than you could imagine. They are probably worth more than your and my apartments combined. Old Hyacinth, Hisey, as he liked to be called by his friends, was an obscure martyr from the early days of Christianity, slain by the Romans for his faith. We know precious little about him today, but we know that his name appears in a list of martyrs from the 4th century, which suggests that he used to be pretty important, and he was popular enough to write his name down on a list, much like what I'm doing right now. Look at how history repeats itself like that. Isn't that fascinating? Now, Hyacinth's skeleton showed up at the Church of the Assumption in, I'm going to excuse the pronunciation here, Fürstenfeldbruck near Munich at an unknown date. Did somebody just drop him off? Somebody just dumped a bag of bones on the front step like he's a baby you're giving up for adoption at the fire station? No more questions. The church was sacked by the Swedish army in the 17th century, and when it was rebuilt, they really went all out with the decor, going over the top, a little baroque, including a skeleton decked out in bling, looking like he is about to take over the skeleton rap scene. So that's Hyacinth, largely not remembered in life for any particular reason beyond being slain for his religion, and remembered forever as a ludicrously swagged out skeleton. We can all only hope for similar legacies as dear sweet Hyacinth. Number 2, the tongue of Saint Padilla. Did you know your tongue is made up of 8 muscles? Maybe you didn't. Did you know that one of the most important relics to the Catholic Church is a dried up 8,000-year-old tongue that looks like beef jerky kept inside a golden helmet that looks like something out of a dark fantasy 80s movie? Well, now you do. And have you enjoyed how much of this list is mummified bodies in gold? Because I have. Saint Anthony was said to be a jewel case of the Bible, making a name for himself with his apparently extremely inspirational sermons that won the Catholic Church many new members. People would flock in just to hear what Saint Anthony was talking about. Apparently, apparently he even got a bunch of ex-Christians to reform and rejoin the faith. He was apparently an incredibly accomplished public speaker, and I would say that he had a silver tongue, but we actually have proof of what color his tongue was because it's kept in a little glass jar. St. Anthony would pass away in 1231 from edema, a horrible disease that causes a buildup and blockage of fluid in the body's tissues. Now, some 30 years later, in 1263, he was exhumed, and shocking the gravediggers who were doing it, while his body had rotted and decomposed, his legendary tongue was still intact, as incorruptible as it had been in life, allegedly still wet with saliva. I wonder if he could still taste. Seeing it was a miracle, the gravediggers took his tongue alongside the bottom half of his jaw, and they are both displayed in the Basilica of St. Anthony of Padua in elaborate gold reliquaries. But honestly, it looks like something straight out of Warhammer 40k. Does no one think this is as odd as I do? Maybe I'm an outsider. I didn't grow up terribly Catholic, so I don't really know these imagery. I know the story behind it isn't terribly scary, but the image of this tongue and jaw inside a little glass helmet wrapped in gold looks like something I would ask an AI to make if I typed in nightmare. A tongue shouldn't look like that. And I feel like a jaw shouldn't look like that either. Am I alone in this? Am I weird for thinking this is weird? You let me know down below in the comments if maybe I just lack context on all of this. And number 1, Camillus de Lellis' heart. Camillus de Lellis was a man with a big heart full of love, never ending in generosity. We know just how big his heart is because it is kept in a glass jar and it is salted to preserve its legacy. Camillus started out pretty humble, born in 16th century Naples. He would later become a soldier until a brutal gambling problem would end up overtaking his life, leaving him in rags driving a donkey cart, but he knew that a far better life was out there. Eventually, he was urged by a friar to explore the lighter side of his soul, and eventually someone was able to pierce his heart both figuratively and later literally, and persuaded him into seeking divine retribution. Camillus would devote his life to providing for the ailing, but tragically, and perhaps unsurprisingly if you spent all your time around sick people before modern medicine, a lifetime of caring for the sick led to him also becoming gravely ill, soaking up a litany of ailments, including a sore in his leg for 46 years, a rupture for 38 years, 2 callous sores in the sole of a foot, violent nephritic colics, intense kidney pain, and for a long time a loss of appetite. Now, all of these things, working in tandem, would eventually claim Camillus, a man who gave his life to healing the sick. So post-mortem, he was canonized and thought of as the patron saint of the sick. And what better way, I ask, to venerate a man famous for his ever-giving heart than to cut his heart out like he was in the Temple of Doom and start salting his heart like it was beef jerky. You can go to St. Mary Magdalene's Church in Rome to go see if his heart, put a stethoscope up to it, check if it's still beating, but it's pretty dried up and tucked away behind glass where you can go and pay your respects and see if it has any life left to bestow and maybe if it'll help you out with an illness at all.
Alrighty, what are we starting off with today? Oh, none other than the infamous Robert doll. Okay, maybe he isn't ancient compared to a lot of the other artifacts I'll be talking about today, but he makes up for it in the terrifying category. For starters, the doll only looks vaguely human. His nub of a nose looks like a pair of pinholes, and he's covered in like little brown marks, kinda like scars. His eyes are beady and black, and combined with his malevolent smirk, he's terrifying to look at. And that's coming from somebody who loves creepy dolls. Clasped in his lap, he's holding his own toy, a doll with disproportionately positioned eyes and a too big tongue falling out of its mouth. Now, this doll originally belonged to Robert Eugene Otto, an artist described as eccentric, which, most artists are, but I promise, I'll elaborate. Neighbors of Robert used to hear him having a conversation with the doll, and this continued into his adult years. Okay, that's not too weird. He brought it everywhere and talked about it in the first person as if it weren't a doll. That might sound kinda batty, but yeah, it's the best way to deal with cursed objects. Trust me, I'm talking from experience. The doll remained stored in the Otto family home until Robert died in 1974. Now, after his death, a couple bought the house, and their young daughter found the doll in the attic. The girl often claimed that the doll was trying to enter. Go figure. If it was hidden away, probably for a reason. The doll is now on display in a museum in Key West and is still believed to curse people. His last caretaker before the museum experienced him disappear and reappear as he pleased, along with hearing footsteps and giggling in the attic. Some claimed the doll's expression changed when anybody badmouthed his owner in his presence. He's also been responsible for, a couple of car crashes, some divorces, broken bones. Okay, good Robert, please, I don't need to be cursed. Let's move on, shall we? Next up we have the Diic Box, or Diic Box. Depending on who you ask, the pronunciations are different all over the interwebs. Nevertheless, in Jewish folklore, this is an evil spirit. Supposedly, a Holocaust survivor accidentally summoned the demon while using a homemade Ouija board, but managed to trap it inside the wine cabinet. Okie dokie, let's just unpack that for a second. Somebody summoned something evil with a Ouija board, sealed it in something else, and people keep trying to awaken it? Let sleeping demons lie, for crying out loud. It's a new year. Let's just not bring anything crazy into it. Kevin Mannis bought the box at an estate sale in 2001 and immediately started having nightmares about an evil hag. Ditto for anybody who stayed with him. Now he gave the box to his mother, who suffered a stroke on the same day. By the way, this story was the inspiration for the 2012 horror film, The Possession. You've probably heard about it. The box's later owners have also claimed that, that creature appeared in their nightmares as well. The last owner was Jason Haxton, director of the Museum of Osteopathic Medicine, who not only had nightmares but developed a strange skin disease and began coughing up red fluids, if you get what I mean. Now at that point, he contacted his local rabbis, sealed the creature back in the box, and gave the cabinet to Zach Baggins. You've probably heard of him? Ghost Adventures? Yeah, that went in his museum. By the way, most recently in 2018, Post Malone fans claimed his series of bad luck was caused by his contact with the cabinet. Look, don't look at me, I believe in omens. Let those things be, let them be. Alrighty, so that brings us to the midway point on today's list, James Dean's car. You know James Dean, right? I hope so. This man freaking loved his 1955 Porsche Spyder, having had it extensively customized, and he eventually called it, yeah you've guessed it, a little. Now apparently the car was so transparently evil that Sir Alec Guinness, when meeting Dean for lunch, claimed, if you get in that, you're gonna be found dead in it by this time next week. Now James Dean laughed it off. He was like, whatever. He went off to go prepare his car for the Salina sports car races, with his Porsche mechanic, Rolf Weatheridge. Enlisting stuntman Bill Hickman to help out, their original plan was to tow, let's call it Little B, to the races, but Rolf felt it would be better to Dean to get used to the vehicle and run the engine in. I'm not the expert here. On that fateful Friday, Rolf sat next to Dean, while Hickman followed with his truck and trailer. Police pulled over the convoy and issued a pair of speeding tickets just outside Bakersfield, but that didn't slow anybody down. Please, this car was meant to go fast. Alright, so we're barreling down Route 466 at an estimated 85 miles per hour when a young student named Donald Turnipseed, driving a Ford two-door, decided to make a sudden turn onto Route 41. Now the impact sent the Ford almost 40 feet down the road and ejected Rolf from the Porsche. James Dean was pronounced dead on arrival at the Paso Robles War Memorial Hospital at 6:20 p.m. But of course, it wouldn't be a curse if it stopped there. When the mechanics tried to repair the wrecked car, it fell on one of them, crushing both his legs. Dr. William S. Ridge bought the Porsche from a salvage yard in Burbank and proceeded to strip it for parts. He installed the engine into his Lotus race car, then loaned the transmission and suspension parts to fellow doctor and racer Troy McHenry. Now our good doctor crashed the Lotus at the 1956 Pomona sports car races, surviving, but McHenry, not so lucky. He hit a tree in the same race. That was the end of him, and that's where the curse gains its strength. Two thieves who tried to take pieces of the car were both injured. Yep, the curse doesn't stop here. Shortly after those crashes, publicity monger and self-proclaimed King of Customs, George Barris, bought the Spyder, promising to rebuild it. When the mangled frame was found to be beyond recovery, he chose to capitalize on the car's notoriety. The Porsche was loaned to the Los Angeles chapter of the National Safety Council, and from 1957 to 59, it went on a gruesome tour of car shows, movie theaters, and bowling alleys. In March of 1959, while in storage in Fresno, the car caught fire. No idea. Just poof. It suffered remarkably little damage, just 2 melted tires, some singed paint, and fortunately the fire didn't spread to the other vehicles in storage. Now meanwhile, Barris, yeah we all remember him, had sold a pair of tires from the 550 and both reportedly blew at the same time, causing the new owner to, skid off the road. Little B even managed to crush and kill a truck driver who was transporting it. The car has since disappeared into a museum archive, which is probably for the best. I'm nervous enough around regular cars, but the thought of this cursed monstrosity is making me extra jittery. Or that's maybe from the monster I had earlier. But still, as somebody who drives on the 401 on a regular basis, no thank you. Next up folks, we've got the unlucky mummy. Granted, I don't think I've ever met a lucky mummy, but make of that what you will. So even though technically speaking an iceberg and poor building plans caused the end of the Titanic, what if there were supernatural forces at play that pushed the fate of the ship along? Enter You guessed it, the unlucky mummy. It was donated to the British Museum in July of 1889 by Mrs. Warwick Hunt of Holland Park, London, on behalf of Mr. Arthur F. Wheeler. It was displayed in the first Egyptian room of the museum from the 1890s and has remained on public view ever since, with the exception of periods during the First and Second World Wars, when it was removed from its case for safety. It has left the museum on a number of occasions, when it formed part of a temporary exhibition held at 2 venues in Australia, and between February 4th to May 27th of 2007, along with a bunch of other pieces, the unlucky mummy was exhibited at Taiwan's National Palace Museum during a press conference. The mummy to which the article belonged is said to have been left in Egypt, since it never formed part of the collections of the British Museum. The mummy board is currently displayed in room 62. The name Unlucky Mummy is misleading, as the artifact isn't really a mummy at all. I promise I'm getting to it, but it's a painted wooden mummy board. So it's kind of like the inner coffin lid. It was found at Thebes and can be dated by its shape and the style of its decoration to the late 21st or early 22nd dynasty. In the British Museum, it is known by its serial number EA22542. The beardless face and the position of the hands with the fingers extended show that it was made to cover the mummified body of a woman. Her identity isn't known due to the brief hieroglyphic inscriptions containing only short religious phrases and omitting mention of the name of the deceased. The high quality of the lid indicates that the owner was a person of high rank. It was unusual for such ladies to participate in the musical accompaniments to the rituals in the temple of Amun-Ra. Hence, early British Museum publications described the owner of 22542 as a priestess of Amun-Ra. E. Wallace Budge, keeper of Egyptian and Assyrian antiquities from 1894 to 1924, also suggested that she might have been of royal descent. But we're not quite sure. I'm not a history expert, folks, for a lot of reasons. And finally, we have the one chair you might not want to sit in. Or don't take my advice and see for yourself. Popularly known as Busby's stoop chair, this wooden furniture is cursed by the spirit of Thomas Busby, who was known to ruthlessly, kill people. Thomas was arrested, tried, and condemned to death after he killed his father-in-law, Daniel Oddie, in 1702. Oddie and Busby were running a coin counterfeiting business, as well as other criminal enterprises, and they argued about the business, which ended with me ending you, Before getting hanged for his crimes, he requested to have a meal in his favorite local pub. And upon finishing his meal, he stood and said, "May sudden death come to anyone who dares sit on my chair." And ever since then, 63 people who dared to sit on the chair met untimely and terrifying deaths. I'm sorry, someone out there waited until the death toll got to 63 before deciding, maybe there's something wrong. I feel like I would have noticed the common Lincoln deaths by, 20 weird deaths or so? At least. Specifically, locals claim that during the Second World War, Canadian airmen from the nearby base at Skipton-on-Swale went to the pub, and those who sat in the chair never returned from missions over mainland Europe. As recent as the 1970s, some fatal accidents were linked with the chair. Busby was, ended at Sandhutton Crossroads, beside an inn, which later had its name changed to the Busby Stoop Inn. The site of the execution, opposite the pub on the A61 and A167 crossroads, which are apparently now a roundabout, was said to be haunted by his ghost. Later, the owner of the pub donated the chair to the Thirsk Museum in the United Kingdom, and it's still there, but it's hung up above the ground to prevent any further deaths. Granted, it's only about 1.5 meters above the ground, which I don't think that's high enough. Stupid people will still find a way. May I recommend a healthy 3 feet, or put it in a box, or even better, put it away forever.
Number 5. Tiny Mummy Alien. In 2003, researchers in Chile uncovered something bizarre that rocked the archaeological world. It was a mummified skeleton. That's pretty normal. Except this one didn't look even remotely like any other skeleton or mummy any archaeologist had ever seen before. This mummy was tiny, yet elongated, deformed in a way that almost made it look like the dried carcass of a fish more than anything that could have been human. The mummy was barely even 6 inches, and while it had some traits that made it look human, everything about it was wrapped in mystery. Making matters more puzzling was the sight of its uncovering inside an abandoned ghost town in Chile, untouched by humans for years, found wrapped in a white cloth and a pink ribbon. The entity was dubbed Ada, and was fascinating professionals and armchair alien enthusiasts who wondered if possibly the mummy could have been evidence of extraterrestrial life, making it the first alien mummy ever found. There was even a documentary featuring her body suggesting her as an alien. Researchers wanted to DNA test Ada data to discover just what her origins could have been, terrestrial or not. I mean, you gotta know, right? Eventually the DNA analysis would reveal the truth. An extract from Ada's bone marrow was used to conduct a study and was determined to be a human female. Now at first scientists were unsure about this because 8% of the DNA didn't match with human DNA, although later they determined this was because of a degradation in the sample. A later test would come in at 98%. And they discovered that the remains had a rare bone aging disorder that made the bones seem significantly older than the person they had belonged to. Bonitis, I think they called it. They determined as well that Ada's body contained evidence of several gene mutations to an extreme degree. I think you could probably guess that by looking at it. One researcher said, to our knowledge, no one has ever explained all of these symptoms in a patient before, and the changes in DNA or mutations reflect this. So yeah, Ada might not have been an alien, but the information in her DNA was definitely alien and unusual to the staff, who do hope that they can use what they've learned to put forward to help future patients. And if you're looking for more weird things found in the ground, Top 5 Scary has all of that and then some. We've got just about everything freaky that could be found under the sun and above it. We got cryptids, conspiracies, true crime, aliens, fake crime, you name it, we got it. So click on through, hit the bell, subscribe, and don't miss a thing. But do it after this video, okay? We got way more weird archaeological sites coming up for you. Number 4, the mass execution. Now I imagine getting executed is probably pretty scary. It might be nice to have a bit of company to do it with. Maybe 80 of my closest friends. Know why exactly these Athenians were shackled and buried, but we can speculate our best, and that's always a lot of fun, isn't it? We love wild speculation around Top 5 Scary. That's basically the brand. Number 3, the Dracula burials. Are you afraid of vampires? I'm gonna take a guess that the answer is most likely no. What with vampires mostly being fictional, they aren't a huge problem in today's society, and if they are out there, they've learned to mingle among us and they're not bothering anybody like Nicolas Cage and Keanu Reeves. Are they vampires? I don't know for sure, but why don't they age? Maybe it's because we've taken care of the vampire problem that they don't really keep coming up. Take a look at this. A recent discovery in Poland had researchers shocked when they discovered a grave site that seemed like it was host to a vampire mass burial. Bodies were found buried with sickles placed around their necks or rocks lodged down their jaws in order to keep them in place should a possible reanimation occur. That just seems like good sense, to be honest. Good built-in insurance so they're not gonna come back. Now we think of Dracula as the king of the vampires, but the truth is stories of creatures of the night long predate the infamous Count, with stories appearing across Eastern Europe since the 11th century, and newspaper accounts of the revenant creatures since the 17th century. Researchers analyzed fragments from the Drowsko cemetery where this vampire masquerade was uncovered, learning some interesting tidbits. The vampires' DNA all suggested that they were locals and that their bodies had been laid to rest peacefully, otherwise that there was no signs of a violent struggle or an altercation of any kind. This led researchers to suspect that these people had fallen ill to cholera, and their symptoms had locals convinced that they might have been creatures of the night. Or they could possibly have been real vampires. I don't know if there's like a scientific test to determine vampirism. I don't know if you study that from the bones or anything. I think maybe you just hold a mirror up, and if you can't see them back, they're vampires, and I think that's the scientific process. Number 2, the Skull Lake. In 2009, archaeologists were excavating the bottom of a prehistoric lake bed in Motala, Sweden, when they stumbled upon the foundations of a mysterious stone structure sealed at the bottom of the lake. Now, if a little siren is going off in the back of your head, you're not alone. I feel like you and I have the knowledge to not open a mysterious structure sealed at the bottom of a lake, but we can't all be as wise and as handsome as the top 5 scary audience. Well, the researchers did some digging and uncovered something very bizarre inside the mysterious stone structure, namely animal bones, stone tools, and the 8,000-year-old skulls of 10 people, ranging in ages from very young to very old, and then found an 11th skull buried within the ancient mud at the bottom, and get this, like the world's worst Kinder Egg, they found fragments of another skull lodged inside the cranium of the 11th skull. It's a surprise for everybody. That would probably be already horrifying enough to earn itself a place on this list, but I buried the lead here and neglected to mention that several of the bodies had stakes driven through them and had shown signs that they were burnt. 2 of the skulls were found with stakes still stuck inside them, and 1 stake had been completely melded with the cranium. And I'm not even done yet. What's most concerning is that the archaeologists who discovered the terrible bone nesting doll don't even really know what they found. They're kind of shrugging just like you and I are now. One theory is that it was a ritual site, perhaps where some dark rituals would have taken place. The pointed end of the stake was probably stuck in the ground, and after the ritual was complete, the rest of the bones were just tossed under the shallow lake. Now, that doesn't really explain the conditions of things unless it was a particularly violent ritual. Parts of a skull don't tend to end up in someone else's skull unless something seriously rowdy is going on. Another possibility is that these were the remains of enemies, and the staked skulls were brought back by warriors as trophies. Now, this explanation is possible, but no records have ever shown that the Predator lived in Sweden, and I think the Predator is more of a skull hunting guy than any humans. Anyway, we may never know the truth behind this one, and I'm gonna be honest, that might be for everybody's best. I want to sleep tonight. And number 1, the HMS Franklin. Have you ever dreamed, perhaps, of sailing the world, going all master and commander, discovering new lands with your comrades in arms under the mizzenmast? I wanted to be a naval explorer for years, unconcerned of the dangers of the sea. Well, it turns out that the life aquatic is significantly more dangerous than the movies make it out to be, and oftentimes you never make it home. In 1845, Sir John Franklin led 2 great ships, the HMS Erebus and the unfortunately named HMS Terror, on a voyage to chart the Arctic. Franklin was a seasoned sailor, and he'd already been around the Arctic 2 times already, and thought he knew his way around an iceberg. Well, it's the Arctic, and things happen. Can't plan for it. That departure in 1845 would be the last time anyone ever saw any of those 2 ships for the better part of 170 years. The Erebus and the Terror both became trapped in ice, and an unreasonably cold summer meant that they were trapped there much longer than anyone could have expected. In a desperate attempt to flee the situation, the crews of both ships evacuated and made a dreadful journey some 1,000 miles to the nearest trading port on the Hudson Bay. Now, you don't need to be a historian. You tell me how you think this turned out. Well, you can probably guess, since they're listed as number 1 on a video about scary archaeological finds, the walk home didn't go super great. The bodies were eventually discovered, preserved in terrifying detail. Captain America, they ain't. Now, the bodies were buried in permafrost, meaning they were preserved kind of like a mummy, but colder and way scarier. They look like latex Halloween masks, but they're real people. And where things get truly terrifying was wound patterns on bones nearby to the bodies that suggested when the crew got hungry, they started looking inwards for food, for long pork. If you are what you eat, then these people are humans. If the implication is not coming across just yet, I don't know if I can be any more subtle about it. Bones had been found cracked, the marrow empty, and knife marks on the bones suggested cuts like a butcher would have. The crew had run out of supplies and began eating their own, desperate to make it back, but never did. The lesson to be learned here? you can never pack enough trail mix. Always bring a second bag of that stuff. Bring some jerky before you have to start treating the cabin boys as food. Number 5, the Shadow Doll. Coming up on the number 5 spot today is part of the collection owned by the late Ed and Lorraine Warren, big top 5 scary fan favorites. One of the first items you'll see when entering the Warrens' Haunted Museum is this terrifying little shadow doll made of bird feathers and real human teeth. The Warrens' son-in-law and current proprietor of the now defunct museum, Tony Spera, offers a little bit of insight on the doll, saying it was originally acquired at an antique shop where it was being sold, with the owners of the shop being none the wiser of the doll's evil. That's completely on the antique shop owner though. You know, you come into a possession of a doll made of bird feathers and human teeth, your first instinct should not be to stick a price tag on it. You should toss it into the ocean or burn it, something like that. Spera claims that the doll's curse works by taking a photograph of the doll, and then when it develops, you write the curse that you'd like to inflict on the back of the photo, and you send that to your victim. And the person who opens the envelope and sees the doll in the photograph will invite the curse into your home. Now, probably a lot of pictures of the shadow doll behind me, or pictures of the shadow doll being interspersed in this video right now. I just want to tell you, I don't have any curses in mind. I didn't write any curses down. I don't have a negative thought inside my head, buddy. I barely have thoughts inside my head as is. If I would curse you with anything, I would curse you to always find loose change, always get texts back from your crush, and I'd curse you to always make the right amount of pasta. I'd only curse you good things. Now, the real question I have to ask about this scary shadow doll is, do you think it's jealous that it's not the most famous haunted doll in the Warrens Museum? I know I would probably have a very hard time sitting next to Annabelle all day. Everyone's coming to gawk and take photos at my movie star sister. Ugh, hard life. Nobody's gonna make any movies about me. No wonder that doll was cursing people. And if you're looking for more stories about cursed dolls, I've got lots and lots and lots and lots of those. And I've got lots of other scary things too. Aliens, ghouls, goblins, conspiracies, just about anything you can think up. I've done a video or 2 on it. So hit subscribe. Please make sure you hit that little bell as well. That means you get every one of the videos we make. But do that at the end of this video if you wouldn't mind, because I got 4 more crazy cursed objects coming up for you right about now. Number 4, cursed Ballista Balls. Like, the last couple years had everybody acting pretty strange. I think it was unprecedented times. Maybe you binged all of Tiger King in a day. Maybe you got really into making sourdough. Maybe you returned a cursed artifact you stole when you were a teenager. We all went through some personal development. In 2020, a source that chooses to remain anonymous returned an ancient artifact that they'd stolen as a teenager to the Israeli government. A Bronze Age ballista ball fired during the Great Jewish Revolt by the Romans. The thief swiped them as a teenager when visiting with a group of friends and went on to live a fairly normal life, a successful career, found a partner, sired some children. Throughout his entire life, he felt as if there was a weight over him, as if he had some invisible presence of guilt weighing down on him forever. And he said no matter how long it had been, or how much his life had moved past this childhood act of delinquency, his heart could never move on from it, and he felt as if he'd been cursed to forever bear the guilt of it. During the events of the last few years, he said it stirred in him this apocalyptic feeling that made him want to return the ballista balls in the hopes of finally clearing his conscience. Do you think at any point during all that fun stuff during the quarantine and everything, do you think he was ever worried that he might have accidentally done it by moving those ballista balls and that's why he had to put them back? Through Facebook, he ended up getting put towards the right channels within the government to return it. But you know what's really bizarre about this bizarre story? This isn't even the first time this has happened, because in 2015 an almost identical story played out. In 2015, 2 ballista balls were returned to Israeli authorities alongside a note stating, "I took these in 1995 from a residential quarter at the foot of the summit. They have brought me nothing but trouble. Please do not steal antiquities." Well, I've got to say it's a nice change of pace to hear about people trying to undo a curse before anything got too heated. And you know what? I like these stories. It's a very easy to follow message for those of us listening at home. Don't steal antiquities. Unless you're Indiana Jones, that should be some pretty easy advice to follow in your life. Number 3, the Crying Boy painting. Some of my favorite cursed objects are a good haunted painting. Maybe it's because I had a huge fondness for Ghostbusters 2 as a little guy, and it's got a haunted painting as the main bad guy of that movie. Maybe it's just because I'm very enticed by the uncanny valley of a pair of eyes that you can look at but can never look at you back. We'll probably mention that in therapy next time. Anyway, case in point, take a look at this painting, the Crying Crying Boy. Looks like a fairly normal painting, wouldn't look too out of place in your dentist's office. It's not really my kind of art, but I'm sure a generation of grannies love to put this in the parlor. It's been the center of a series of strange coincidences that are just too darn odd to be true. It was painted by an Italian painter, one Giovanni Bragolin, and mass-produced as a print across the 50s, so everyone could enjoy this sad crying boy in the comfort of their own home until they would burn down. Because for some bizarre, possibly paranormal reason, firefighters around Essex, London would report that frequently, amidst smoldering ruins of a burned down house, repeatedly they would find the crying boy painting completely untouched by the flames, even when everything else had burned to ash. Now, this happens once, that's bizarre. 2, very strange. If this happens 3 times, you've got yourself an outright paranormal mystery on your hands. The British tabloid The Sun loved the story and was spreading stories of the cursed paintings like a house on fire. Too soon? The Sun printed out warnings of people who owned the painting and that they should get rid of it, lest they find themselves smelling smoke. The story was so popular and people were so invested in the curse of the crying boy that the Sun tried to take it upon themselves to rid London of the curse by, get this, holding a bonfire in which anyone who owned a print of the cursed painting could come, torch it, and hopefully exorcise whatever demons had got into the printing press. The bonfire was a raging success, with sackfuls of the prints being torched, seemingly ending the curse of the crying boy. After hearing about this story though, does anyone else kind of want one of the prints? I don't know, there's something about it. Number 2, the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond has shown up more than a few times on this channel, and for good reason. It's considered one of the most haunted rocks on the planet. The diamond was first uncovered in India, with reports purporting that the diamond was plucked from the eye of a statue of the goddess Sita, the goddess of beauty and devotion. Legend has it that the first person who stole the diamond was mauled by dogs shortly after taking it. That's a pretty quick curse. From here, the diamonds passed through countless hands, never staying in one place for too long. It's said to have been owned by King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, who, as far as I know, never had anything too bad happen to her. Nothing worth losing your head over worrying about. That's a little history joke for you. Throughout the diamond's storied history, it's been said that just about every owner suffered a horrific fate. 14 confirmed deaths and owners throughout history, and that's only the ones we know of for sure, as there could be countless more. The jeweler who recut the stone into its current form, William Falls, died a ruined man in poverty and hardship. His son Hendrik stole the stone from his father, who would later be prompted to take his own life for the crime. After passing from owner to owner under grisly circumstances, it made its way to Harry Winston, an American jeweler who, possibly making the only good choice of anyone on this list, thought it better to play with his odds and donated the diamond to the Smithsonian Museum in 1958, where it currently resides, sealed away. The curators of the Smithsonian were thrilled to receive it and have said that they consider the gem a crown jewel, and that in all the time it's been in their watch, no one has suffered any ill effects. Maybe Indiana Jones was right. It belongs in a museum. That's too many Indiana jokes in one video. Too many Indiana jokes. I'm excited about the new one. I can't believe old Harrison Ford's coming back again for the millionth time. He's always coming back. Number 1, Robert the Doll. Every good list of cursed objects should definitely include one cursed doll. I know we had the Shadow doll up there, but that was like a starter cursed doll. We got better ones. So that's why we're gonna finish up this list for today with a classic haunted doll. Dolls are just inherently a little bit scary when they're not being used for make-believe, and they're especially scary when they carry a series of unfortunate urban legends with them, like the case of Robert the Doll. Maybe you've even heard of Robert the Doll, maybe from this very own channel, maybe from this very own host, because I mentioned him in the first video that I ever did. It's all full circle. He's one of the more notable cursed dolls out there. If you're in the cursed doll community, you probably know him. Robert has been haunting for over a century. He used to be the property of one Robert Jean Otto. Although he shared a name with the doll, he preferred to be called Otto. Maybe because of the doll he wanted to be called Otto. Anyway, Otto received Robert as a boy from his grandfather, who obtained the doll through unknown means. Trying to trace wherever it came from has proven fruitless, as no toy company has ever been found to have produced it. Now, the young Otto loved Robert and had a very active imagination to a degree that would unsettle his parents. He would refer to the doll in first person and brought it everywhere with him, even dressed it in his own clothing. Otto would say that he would hear Robert talk to him and would see him move. Children who passed the homestead when walking by would say that they claim that they saw Robert in the windows watching them. Otto would blame all these mishaps on Robert. Injuries, breaks, anything that happened, it was because Robert had told him to do it or that Robert the doll had done it. And this behavior kind of understandably deeply worried Otto's parents. Otto kept Robert until the day of his death in 1974, where he then traveled from home to home, causing a path of misfortune wherever he went until he eventually found himself in the Key West Art and Historical Society, where he's now kept under very tight lock and key and has become the museum's most popular attraction, where visitors leave him offerings, treats, and even writing letters asking for protection or for him to curse others. Employees of the museum say sometimes they feel uncomfortable around him and have noticed a chill in the air by his seat or electrical malfunctions near where he sits. It's been said that they need to stay on his good side lest they provoke his wrath. Maybe it's a good thing then that he's locked up tight in that glass case, and there's just something about this guy. And Robert the doll, if you're watching right now, just want you to know all that stuff I was saying, I was just playing. You know we're friends. You know we've always gone together, you and I. You know I'm a big fan of the scary doll community. I just wanted to make it clear, we're cool.
Number 5 on this list is the Diic Box. This is an evil box that tormented many people and even claimed some lives along the way. Zach Baggins writes, according to Jewish folklore, a Diic is a dark spirit that takes over the bodies of living people and uses them for evil. Legend has it that a Diic can be trapped inside of a box and prevented from causing mischief unless the box is opened, that is. Several years ago, the Diic box came up for sale on eBay. The seller listed a vintage wine cabinet that came from the estate of a woman who survived a World War II concentration camp. The seller, an antique dealer named Kevin Mannis, claimed that the first owner's granddaughter was terrified of the box, warning him that her grandmother said it held a Diic. After buying the cabinet, he was plagued by a series of unfortunate events and recurring nightmares of an old hag that would brutally attack him, causing him to wake up with bruises on his body. He also experienced an overpowering stench of cat urine in his home. Tragically, his mother suffered a stroke while opening the box. Not surprisingly, he decided to get rid of it. The box eventually ended up in the hands of Missouri Medical Museum director Jason Haxton, who was skeptical about the powers attributed to the box. He soon changed his mind. After acquiring the box, he began to experience a series of medical maladies, including bleeding eyes and strange rashes. He also began to dream of being attacked by an old hag and would also awake with bruises on his body. Kevin Mannis told me that while the box was in Haxton's basement, a man died there and his body was found lying next to the box. He eventually became so unnerved by the box that he reached out to scientists and rabbis who instructed him to build a wooden ark lined with 24 karat gold, place the box inside, and bury it in the ground. Now this actually wasn't the end of the story for this box. The box was eventually dug up again and then later donated to a museum. This was after it had tormented a few more people, mind you though. Now it's fully encased in a glass covering, but even that doesn't stop the evil spirit from coming after people. Many people who have visited this box have reported having serious episodes in the room while they're looking at it. Whatever spirit is trapped inside this box, it is clearly an extremely powerful one. The box remains on display at the museum, but I wouldn't recommend going to check it out if I was you. Number 4 on this list is the Devil's Rocking Chair. The Devil's Rocking Chair is actually from one of Ed and Lorraine Warren's most famous case, The Devil Made Me Do It. Zach Baggins writes, the horror began in July 1980 when David Glatzel, 11 years old, became possessed by a demon. One night he woke up screaming, claiming that he had been visited by a man with big black eyes, a thin face with animal features, jagged teeth, pointed ears, horns, and hooves. David was, everyone agreed, not the kind of kid who liked scary movies or who was likely to make things up, and he was visibly shaken up by this experience. He became rather withdrawn and quiet. His older sister, Debbie, asked her fiancé, Arn Johnson, if he would stay with her family for a while and see whether it would help David get out of his depression. Arn of course agreed, but things didn't get better. David reported having more nightmares about the terrifying man who promised to take his soul. Odd scratches and bruises began to appear on the boy, and all the injuries seemed to happen while he was asleep. Odd sounds, which Arn couldn't explain, were were heard in the attic. Worst of all, David began to claim that he was now seeing the beast while he was awake. He was always seen sitting in the family's rocking chair, which the beast now claimed as his own. David was the only one who saw the beast in the chair, but family members often saw it rocking back and forth, seemingly under its own power. This was obviously a lot, so the Warrens were brought in to perform the exorcism. The exorcism took place in that rocking chair, and it's thought that the chair itself still has some evil energy from this spirit attached to it. Now the chair resides at the Haunted Museum, but owner Zach Bagans actually took the exhibit down because the chair was simply too dangerous, he thought. Number 3 on this list is the Hope Diamond. Don't get me wrong guys, I would love to have this thing, but I just don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze here. Google Arts and Culture says, one of the most famous diamonds in the world, the Hope Diamond, originated in the Kolar mine in Andhra Pradesh, India. According to legend, the stone is cursed and brings misfortune to anyone who owns it. The curse is said to have come about when the original diamond was stolen from the eye of a statue. The thief met a grisly end, kick-starting a pattern of misfortune for all those who possessed the diamond. Over the years, owners of the Hope Diamond have befallen fates including death by murder, execution, they've taken their own lives, bankruptcy, and imprisonment. Thankfully, the curse seems to have been lifted when the diamond was donated to the Smithsonian in 1958. Now, I don't really buy into the fact that this curse is lifted, in my opinion. Like, literally, if you own this diamond, then you die or someone you love dies. That's what's happened throughout history. In the best possible case scenario, you just get hit with like horrible luck and lose all your money or some other horrible thing. There just really isn't any good way to spin this. Owning the Hope Diamond is pretty much a horrible idea. Number 2 on this list is the Unlucky Mummy. Do not get on a boat if said boat is also carrying this mummy. Google Arts and Culture says the Unlucky Mummy isn't actually a mummy, but the mummy board or coffin lid of a high status woman who lived in around 950 to 900 BCE. Discovered in Thebes in the 1800s, the 4 young Englishmen who first purchased the mummy all died in unfortunate circumstances. Rumors of the curse soon spread, and in the early 20th century, journalist William Thomas Stead wrote an article on the jinxed artifact. Stead went on to be one of the passengers on the doomed Titanic. It's said that he told stories of the curse in the run-up to the disaster, with many believing that the mummy itself caused the ship's watery end. Today, the Unlucky Mummy is on display in the British Museum. The Titanic was supposed to be unsinkable. Enter in the Unlucky Mummy and boom, now the unsinkable ship goes down. Maybe it's a stretch to say that this thing caused the literal Titanic crash, but I can at least guarantee that it probably didn't help. At least this thing is now locked up in a museum very much on land and not connected to any boats that I know of. And number 1 on this list is the Hands Resist Him painting. I'm all about having some cool, groundbreaking art, but this painting definitely crosses the line. The lineup says there is no doubt the painting is disturbing. It shows a young boy standing next to a girl doll with hollow eyes and a sad, downturned mouth. The doll is holding a strange device with wires coming out of it. The eeriest part of the painting are the many disembodied children's hands reaching toward the boy through the glass panels of a door just behind him. But even more disturbing than the painting itself are the stories of what has happened to people who come in contact with it. A few years after the painting was sold, the art critic Henry Seldes died. Then the gallery owner died. Then in 1984, John Marley died. The painting disappeared, not surfacing again until 2000 in a bizarre posting on eBay. The new owners were trying to sell it because they said it was haunted. They claimed the boy and the doll in the picture would fight with each other during the night, terrifying their 4-year-old daughter. They set up a motion sensing camera in the room for 3 nights and claimed they had captured the boy in the picture leaving the frame and coming into the room, apparently fleeing in terror. The literal kid in the painting is leaving. Not freaking cool, guys. My paintings are supposed to be static and not moving, and they definitely aren't supposed to be walking around my home scaring the living bejesus out of me and my family. Apparently, this painting is locked up in a storage locker now, and no one is allowed to see it.
Number 5, the Great Bed of Ware. Located in the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Great Bed of Ware has become infamous for its dark, twisted history. Constructed in 1850, the bed was created as a tourist attraction for an inn in Ware. The 4-poster bed is over 3 meters wide and is the only known example of a bed this size. It's been said that it is able to accommodate at least 4 couples, minimum. 8 people, wow. Guests would carve their initials into the wood or apply red wax seals to commemorate their stay and leave their mark on the bed. The marks are still visible on the bed to this day. The bed's carving is typical for the late Elizabethan period, with ornamental ribbon-like patterns, lions and satyrs to symbolize fertility and virility. By 1931, the bed became the single most expensive item of furniture, specifically a single piece of furniture opposed to a set. According to legend, the carpenter who made the bed was so enraged by the disrespectful treatment of his work that his ghost attacked any commoner who slept in it. And you know, the carpenter made the bed for a king, and then traveling commoners slept in it and carved their names all over. I'd be kind of upset too. Like, he must have believed the bed was going to be treated a lot differently than it actually was. The bed he had made for a king was instead damaged and covered in graffiti. The bed is now on display in Britain, and you are able to visit it. But luckily for both you and the carpenter's ghost, no one is able to sleep in the bed now. Number 4, the Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army is a collection of terracotta sculptures that depict the armies of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. You know, the one that searched for immortality and ate mercury in an attempt to live forever? Yeah, that one. The statues are a form of art that were buried along with Qin Shi, with the purpose of protecting him in his afterlife. The statues were first discovered in 1974 by a group of local farmers. The figures varied in height according to their rank, the tallest being the generals. The figures included warriors, chariots, and horses. There were 3 pits, which held over 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots with 520 horses, and 150 cavalry horses. Most were found in the mausoleum for Qin Shi, but there were also some found in nearby pits that weren't directly in his massive underground grave. The village that the farmers were from believed that if they disturbed the army, they would receive misfortune and bouts of bad luck. Their suspicions were sadly correct, seeing as their 2,000-year-old village was destroyed in order to create an enormous museum over the area. I mean, I'd say that's less misfortune and more human idiocy. Just leave well enough alone. You don't need to make everything a spectacle. The extravagant funeral art is available for observation in the museum, and pieces of the army have been sent all over the world. But you should definitely think twice before deciding to visit the exhibit. Bad luck and misfortune are definitely able to spread to curious onlookers. Guys, I know I usually tell you to stay curious, but if you come across someone's funeral art, don't be curious. Turn around and pretend like you never saw it. It's like if you decided to unearth someone's coffin just because you thought it was cool. It's weird. That would be a weird, disrespectful thing to do. Number 3, the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond is one of the most famous diamonds in the world. The diamond originated in the Kolar mine in Andhra Pradesh, India. The history of the stone began when a French merchant traveler purchased the diamond, which was triangular in shape and crudely cut. He described the color as a beautiful violet. The stone was then sold to King Louis along with 14 other large diamonds and many smaller ones. The stone was then recut by the court jeweler. It was described by them as an intense steely blue, and the stone became known as the Blue Diamond of the Crown, or the French Blue. It was set in gold and hung from a neck ribbon, which was worn by the king on ceremonial occasions. The next king got the diamond reset, and then, when he and Marie Antoinette attempted to escape France in 1792, the diamond was stolen after being seized by the government. The stone was passed on to many people, being set in different jewelries and headpieces. Eventually, the stone would be displayed in several exhibitions for people to view worldwide. In 1958, the diamond was donated to the Smithsonian, quickly becoming the main attraction. Since its donation, the stone has only left the premises 4 times. Once to the Louvre, once to South Africa at the Rand Easter Show opening, once to Harry Mary Winston and one other time to clean and restore the diamond. According to legend, the stone is cursed and will bring bad luck and misfortune to anyone who owns it. The curse is said to have come about when the original diamond was stolen from the eye of a statue. The thief who originally stole the stone met a grisly end, and owners of the diamond over the years have followed the same fate, being beheaded, executed, imprisoned, turned bankrupt, and many of their lives have ended abruptly at their own hands and often at someone else's. Since the diamond reached the Smithsonian, there have been no reports of the curse's effects, but I would suggest the only reason for that is no one wears it. I mean, if I got the chance, I have to say, I'd wear it. The thing is beautiful, and I would leave this life happy, knowing that I had millions of dollars strapped around my neck, glittering and shining in a vibrant blue. Number 2, Unlucky Mummy. The Unlucky Mummy is an ancient Egyptian artifact owned by the famous colonizers, the British. More specifically, it lies within the halls of the British Museum. The identity of the original owner is unknown. The artifact is described as a painted wooden mummy board of an unidentified woman and was obtained by the British Museum in 1889. The Unlucky Mummy is actually not a mummy at all. Instead, it is a gessoed and painted wooden inner coffin lid. It was found at Thebes and has been dated by its shape and style of decoration to the late 21st or the early 22nd dynasty. It is 162 centimeters in length and made of wood and plaster. The paint is placed on the plaster and hands protrude out of the mummy board. A nice 3D moment, you know? Its reputation for misfortune has been told for years, and many attribute large-scale disasters to the presence of the board. One story says the mummy was being moved from the British Museum to New York aboard the Titanic, which, as you know, sank. Disclaimers surrounding the mummy's danger have even been published. One writer even conducted research into the history of the artifact, coming to the conclusion that the object had malevolent powers, and guess what? He passed away only 3 years later. The writer was very young and had no health concerns. His life ended at the mere age of 36. The mummy which the board belonged to has never been found, but many say that it was left in Egypt. I have to say, people keep taking things that don't belong to them, disturbing bodies that had been left undisturbed for thousands of years, and then they act all surprised when the stuff is cursed. I definitely put a curse on the lid of my coffin. Anyone who separates me and my coffin lid, or even pick me up from my resting place to move me into a fluorescent hellscape, would definitely be sentenced to a fate of mediocrity and ignorant greed. Wait, oh my gosh. Anyone who does that is already both of those things. Things are starting to make a lot more sense now. Honestly, I love history, but at the same time, no, I don't. I don't need to know the genetic makeup of people 2,000 years ago. That won't help me. People just need to chill on the grave digging. Add that to the list of the top 5 weirdest, most unsettling things humans do. I could definitely make a highly controversial and opinionated video on that, which would likely get me canceled. It would also be like 2 hours long. Number 1, Cursed Ledger. A family in Kent donated this haunted book to Brighton's most haunted house, Preston Manor. They donated it after they were plagued by spectral visions and paranormal visitors. The shop ledger is from 1915, but was found trapped in the brick wall at a jeweler while a demolition was being performed in the 1980s. It was discovered by Tony Benyovitz in 1988 when he was demolishing the Shoreland Fuchs shop, which had closed in 1984. He, for some reason, decided to bring the book home, and it caused him and his daughter to suffer a myriad of paranormal hauntings, which they described as spirit visitations. His daughter, Josephine, claimed that images appeared in her rug, including a group of men, women, and children, and a soldier with a horse. She said that the spirits told her that the book had to be returned to Brighton for the anniversary of its first entry in December of 1915. The spirit's requests caused Josephine to phone Preston Manor, who sent a medium to visit the house. The medium confirmed that they sensed bad things emanating from it. Wow, specific. Josephine happily donated the ledger to the manor. She had no interest in keeping it to herself, or even keeping it in her possession. Fair, I mean, I don't think I would want to keep it either, to be honest. The manor recalled their thoughts about the book, saying, "At first, we weren't sure whether we'd take this apparently ordinary 100-year-old shop ledger, but the family impressed on us quite how scared they were of having the book in their keeping. When I had a phone conversation with Josephine, she seemed petrified." The book contained entries listing the jewelry sold from the shop it belonged to. After the book had been donated, Kent, the officer of Preston Manor, kept the ledger on her desk for a couple of weeks, but was unable to understand what exactly had happened to the book. Preston Manor holds several haunted items and is well known for the plethora of ghosts and spectral activities it contains. If you're a fan of getting haunted by the Lady in White or the Grey Lady, those are descriptive names, then you should definitely consider taking a trip to Brighton and Hove, East Sussex, to visit Preston Manor. They absolutely have their share of Victorian ghosts and haunted artifacts. Definitely a lot for the paranormal enthusiasts of the world to enjoy. I'll always find it strange that humans will just take things that aren't theirs and then complain about the repercussions. Here's a tip for everyone. If it's not yours and it's buried in a haunted tomb or stolen from the body of a statue of worship, don't touch it. Just leave it. It doesn't matter how pretty it is, it's not worth it. Just leave it.
Starting off this countdown, we have Mary Todd Lincoln's dress. This beautiful dress was once owned by Mary Todd Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's wife. It's a beautiful purple velvet dress with satin and lace detailing. She wore this dress during the Washington winter social season in 1861 to 62. But here's the thing. After her husband's death, Mary went into mourning for a long period of time. In fact, she stayed in widow's clothes up until her own death in 1882. So she had no use for this dress anymore. So she gave this dress and some of her other items to her family members. This dress was given to her cousin Elizabeth Todd Grimsley. In 1916, Grimsley's son sold the dress to the Smithsonian's First Ladies collection. And now, apparently, it's haunted by Mary Todd herself. People have heard weeping when they have been near this dress. On a number of occasions, they have actually seen Mary Todd Lincoln's apparition by the dress. Thankfully, she means no harm. But if you think about it, it's quite sad. Even in the afterlife, she's still mourning over the loss of her husband. Hopefully, she can eventually find peace and reunite with him. Moving on to number 4, we have the Smithsonian. One of the most haunted items in the Smithsonian is the museum itself. It is haunted by a number of ghosts. As a result, they actually offer ghost tours on location for people interested in the paranormal. On a number of occasions, workers have seen past Smithsonian scientists who would work on the collections there. But the most active ghost is that of the Smithsonian's first curator and second secretary, Spencer Fullerton Bard. Almost all of the night guards at the Smithsonian have seen his ghost wandering the halls. They see him gliding through the halls, people try to talk to him, and then he disappears into thin air. Then you have the ghost of Secretary Joseph Henry that also likes to show his face around town. According to the night guards, they said, and I quote, "Henry is often seen fully clothed in the garments he wore in life, walking through the exhibits before returning to his post. His post being the statue the museum has in place for him." Dude, what in the night of the museum is this? Seriously. Then you have the countless unidentified entities that also haunt the halls. These are just like black shadowy figures people have seen in passing. At least it seems like these ghosts mean no harm. Like, sure, it's kinda spooky, but at least they aren't malicious. Also, hit that thumbs up button if you want to see me go ghost hunting at the Smithsonian. I'm down. I'm down. In our third spot today, we have the ancient Egyptian treasures. Rumor has it that a number of treasures or artifacts from ancient Egypt are cursed. I mean, you all know about King Tut's curse. Well, there are a couple of items in the Smithsonian from ancient Egypt that are definitely haunted. For starters, we have the scarab. This scarab is believed to be from King Tut's tomb. For starters, it is believed that bad luck will fall on anyone who handles King Tut's body or other artifacts in his tomb. Everything in there is believed to be cursed by King Tut himself. I'm sure you've heard of the story of Howard Carter and his team that excavated the tomb. After doing so, several of the people involved died suddenly and mysteriously, so it's believed that this scarab is cursed along with the other items there. And then we have the mummified cat head. Yeah, you heard me. Now this one actually isn't from King Tut's tomb, but a woman named Mab B. Nylon donated a cat's head. Yeah, just the head. who knows where the body is? Hey, maybe she kept it for herself and it's on display in her house. I'm not gonna judge. Anyways, this creepy thing is a preserved mummified cat's head wrapped in linen. Inside contains a real cat skull. Well, according to a number of workers, they have seen a ghostly cat apparition move around this display. This damn ghost cat is probably out looking for the rest of its body. This cat has also been seen wandering the halls and in several other exhibits as well. Moving on at number 2, we have the Black Aggie. This all started back in the 1800s when a woman named Marianne Hooper Adams, known by her friends as Clover, sunk into a terrible depression. As a result, she drank some of her photography developing chemicals and took her own life. After her death, her husband commissioned a sculptor to make a memorial statue of her. It was named the Adams Memorial, and later Black Aggie. But because of how it looked, people called it Grief, and that's when this creepy legend surrounding it was born. Legend goes that if you stare into her eyes long enough, they'll open up and start glowing red. Those that see her eyes will either be killed by her or she will cause you to go blind. Not only that, if you sit on the statue's lap at midnight, then you will die within 2 weeks. It's also said that pregnant ladies should never go near her. If they do, she will cause them to miscarry. Of course, this is just a creepy legend, right? Well, supposedly there's real life stories of this haunted statue taking people's lives. One man put a cigarette out on the statue's hand and he was later found dead with a gunshot wound to the head. Another man was found dead at the foot of the statue and no one knows his cause of death. Now, you may be wondering how the statue got to the Smithsonian. Well, because of the legend, a lot of people were breaking into the cemetery at night to visit it, and it was often vandalized. So the family donated it to the museum where it remains to this day. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Hope Diamond. This is a very beautiful diamond from India, but here's the thing. It was stolen from India, and then a curse was placed on it. Back in 1792, the Hope Diamond was part of a Hindu statue. It was one of the idol's eyes. And then somebody went in and took the 115-carat diamond out. Upon discovering that the diamond was stolen, priests put a curse on it. The curse was said to affect anyone that put their greedy little paws on it, which turned out to be a lot of people over the years. And guess what? Bad luck befell to every single one of its owners. It's said that the man who stole the diamond shortly came down with a raging fever and died shortly after. Legend continues on saying that his body was ravaged by wolves. Continuing on, King Louis XIV bought the stone and had it recut in 1673. He died of gangrene, and all his legitimate kids died early on in life. Then we have Marie Antoinette. Apparently she wore it as well. And we all know how bad things ended for her. Another story involved an heiress named Evelyn Walsh McLean. She bought the Hope Diamond and everyone around her started to die mysteriously. First it was her mother-in-law, then her son, then her husband left her and later died in a mental hospital, and then her daughter. She later sold the diamond to get rid of this curse. That's not even half the people affected by this diamond, like the list goes on and on. Now the haunted diamond is on display at the Smithsonian. Hopefully no one will ever try to steal it because we don't need to relive its curse over again.
Number 5. The Knife Blade Man. Discovered in 2018 in northern Italy, a group of archaeologists were digging up a massive gravesite of the Lombardo, an ancient Germanic people. Found in a necropolis, which is a very fancy word for a large, elaborate tomb, and maybe one of the best words in the English language, the team found hundreds of skeletons that were at the site, including horses and greyhounds, and for the most part, they're not particularly notable. You've seen one old bag of bones, you've seen them all, except for one skeleton that in the place of a forearm was an impressive blade. Now this raises countless fascinating questions. Who was this guy? Was this the first Assassin's Creed protagonist? Some legendary madman of a warrior who lost an arm and thought, I don't know, put a blade on there, I can still fight? Well, the Lombardo people placed a great emphasis on war and combat in their culture, so it is possible. The researchers noted that there was a clear dated buckle around his arm, and pressure on the bones of his arm showed that it was an intentional prosthetic, right down to the wear and tear on his teeth, suggesting he tightened the straps for his hidden blade with his teeth. Most of the other skeletons found in the necropolis all had blades buried with them at their sides, perhaps ritually out of honor, but this unique specimen had it grafted onto his arm like he's history's first cyborg or Baraka from Mortal Kombat. To be able to not only survive an amputation, pre-antibiotics and modern medicine is already impressive. And hey, if you're always looking to learn something from knife arm skeletons, then toss a subscribe our way. Top 5 Scaries always got a couple scary videos for you every day. Let's creep on creeping on. Number 4. the hanging coffins. We're going up to China for our next one, specifically Hubei, China. There's a cave there that the locals call the Cave of the Fairies, and you've probably already realized that there's gonna be a dark secret involved with the Cave of Fairies. We never talk about anything nice here. It was said that the mythical creatures were supposed to live in the cave, but those who explored it inside found that there wasn't much of anything living at all, instead finding something deeply disturbing. Rows and rows of coffins, some hanging from ropes, some jammed, wedged between the rocks of the cave. The coffins themselves were massive, weighing around 200 pounds each, and some destroyed and ravaged. Dating the coffins puts them at around 1200 years old, and are thought to have been put up by the ancient Bo people, an extinct culture hailing from China, famous for this unique practice of hanging coffins from caves. It's thought that this served two purposes: one, as a ritualistic offering meant to bless the dead, and two, from a practical, pragmatic sense, it would prevent any would-be carrion eaters from picking through to get a meal. Fascinatingly, it can be seen that all of the coffins were carved from a single tree, one big log. One wonders if that was part of the ritual element of it. Now, the coffins being smashed is interesting, because the discoverers of the coffins theorized that the damage was actually pretty recent, dating it to the 1960s. And their prevailing theory was that someone wandered into this cave in a place of desperation and smashed the coffins to garner some firewood in the hopes that they could survive the night and not pass among the hanging dead. Let's just hope they didn't release any ancient curses at the same time. Number 3. The Black Sarcophagus. Now, you might have heard of this one before. If you were on Twitter much a couple years ago, maybe you remember vaguely hearing about sarcophagus juice. Maybe those words are ringing a strange bell. There was a pretty good petition going around to let people drink the sarcophagus juice. But let's back up a bit. What is sarcophagus juice, and where did it come from, and why do we want to drink it? Well, I've got the answers. Somewhat. I've got some answers. In 2018, a team of archaeologists digging in Alexandria, Egypt, discovered a massive granite black sarcophagus, which immediately set off everybody's warning signs that you should not touch that. People wondered what the 30-ton stone slab could be containing, with some even suggesting it could have been the mighty body of Alexander the Great. People warned the archaeologists that there, could be some ancient evil, like when King Tut's tomb was raided and a very strange curse befell the explorers and excavators. Well, what they found wasn't a hidden curse, but honestly something stranger. 3 skeletons inside the coffin, with a skull shattered by an arrow, and a whole lot of mysterious black goop, or sarcophagus juice. So again, looping right back around it. What is the sarcophagus juice, and does it taste good? Well, scientists analyzed the sludge and discovered that it was made from a combination of animal fats, tree resin, beeswax, and crude oil. The sludge has been recovered out of multiple coffins and sarcophagi, so it's not exclusive to this dreaded one. But that doesn't explain why this nasty stuff is there. Well, there's some theories about this, no concrete answers, but I'll do my best. It's said that when someone died, they become a form of the god Osiris, who is associated with death and rebirth. Osiris was called the Black One, and is depicted with very dark black skin in the guise of a mummified body. As well, black is also a color associated with the deposits on the bank of the River Nile after a flood season. Fresh and fertile soil was seen as inherently regenerative. So it's theorized that with the linking concepts of Osiris and the regeneration of the soil, soaking and filling the coffins with this black sludge was a very confusing part of the mummification process. Number 2. Headless Vikings. In 2008, a group of archaeologists were doing some fairly routine work in Dorset, a seaside town in England, in a rather dull job to improve local roads around the area. As could be expected, not too much of note was discovered, except for the mass grave of 54 headless Viking mercenaries. And not just were their skulls missing, but the rib cages, arms, and leg bones were all arranged neatly, surrounded by discarded teeth. No clothes or weaponry was discovered. So what happened? Because nothing my imagination is coming up with is conjuring anything good. Well, the bones revealed some fascinating finds, and I'll warn you now, by Odin's beard, they're all terrifying options. The teeth surrounding the grave were all filed down, but done neatly as if a craftsman had done it. Obviously, pre-Novocaine dental surgery wouldn't go down easy, so the process must have been excruciating, suggesting perhaps these men had it done to them out of some sort of punishment, or they did it to themselves to frighten their opponents and show them just how strong they were. Neither one of those options is particularly pleasant to consider. But now let's get spine chillin' with it. The archaeologists' prevailing theory about what happened to this big Nordic pile of bones is that looking at the wound patterns on the ribs and the torso bones were smart, surgical, precise blows, not matching with a rabid hack job you'd expect from a brawl. The archaeologists suggested that the Vikings weren't slain in battle, but rather offered up perhaps perhaps to some sort of strange sadistic ritual, or perhaps a mass execution. It would explain why the men had no gear with them as well. The large number of bodies and intense cruelty of it suggests that there wasn't any trained executioners, leading to the prevailing theory that it's a dark, dark ritual. Number 1. Bog people. Name one good thing that's ever been found in a bog. Need some help? There's never been one. For peat farmers in northern Europe, it's a thankless life, working in wet, muddy bogs and occasionally finding leathery preserved bog mummies. Due to the low temperatures, lack of oxygen, and high acidity of bogs, bodies found there are preserved disturbingly well. Well, preserved is a bit of a misnomer. They're twisted and rived, but they're intact sort of. It's hard to think of these as preserved well because they look like the scariest things you've ever seen, but the process is weirdly fascinating if you're interested in looking up something disgusting. This happens all over northwestern Europe, with no one specific case to point to. It happens all over Ireland, Germany, Great Britain, the Netherlands, and so on. The bodies range from anywhere as old as 8,000 years old preserved to the most recent appearing to have been from the early turn of our century. Now, no one really has any idea how many of these bog bodies could be out there, and no one really knows how the unfortunate bog victims ended up in their final muddy resting spot. Some of them could possibly have just been unlucky souls who found themselves lost and fell in. But another prevailing theory is that Roman Iron Age people in northern Europe sacrificed people to the bogs, which sounds too dark to be real, but apparently is. They would also offer people as sacrifice or as punishment for their perceived social imperfections, which may I just say I am very glad this practice isn't commonplace, because I would be cast into the bogs faster than you could say peat deposit.
Number 5. Want to catch these alien hands? So in the realm of mysterious artifacts that tend to defy earthly explanations, the giant hand discovered in a Peruvian cave back in 2017 stands as quite the tantalizing enigma, if you ask me. And since you're here, Brian Forster and his team associated with Hidden Inca Tours received this peculiar specimen from a group of explorers who stumbled upon it near Cusco. What's more is they claim to have found an elongated humanoid skull and a small mummified alien in proximity to the giant hand. Although the explorers kept the exact location under wraps, get it? They allowed Forrester to examine the anomalous artifacts, if you will. X-ray analysis unveiled a startling revelation. Each of the hand's 3 fingers possessed an astonishing 6 bones, in stark contrast to the human hand's, 3. Unnamed physicians, perplexed by their findings, classified the hand and skull as biological objects with genuine animal bones and skin tissues. Now the enigma deepens as they asserted that these specimens bore no resemblance to any known earthly creatures. While this discovery invokes images of extraterrestrial origins, conclusive evidence remains elusive. UFO hunter Scott C. Waring of UFOsightingsdaily.com emphasized the hand's otherworldly nature, yet DNA analysis leaves room for ambiguity, as we have no extraterrestrial DNA to really compare it to. Instead, the results only affirm that this mysterious hand does not correspond to any known species of this earth. The existence of the skull adds complexity to the mystery, raising questions about potential cooperative efforts between various alien entities within the, cave tunnel. The implications of this discovery are nothing short of mind-boggling. It challenges our understanding of biology, anthropology, and the boundaries of what may lie beyond our planet. The giant alien hand, along with its associated artifacts, remains a subject of intense scrutiny for researchers and enthusiasts alike, leaving us with more questions than answers in the quest to unravel its true origin and significance. Number 4. Alien Tooth Wheel. Just when I think I've seen it all, I'm proven otherwise. 300 million years ago, our planet was a vastly different place. Dinosaurs were still a distant dream, and complex machinery seemed like pure science fiction. Yet in the vast reaches of Russia, a mysterious artifact has been uncovered, shrouded in mystery and controversy. Imagine the astonishment of Dmitry, a resident of Vladivostok, when he stumbled upon an unusual piece of coal while preparing to heat his home. This wasn't your typical lump of ancient carbon, it held a metallic secret, a seemingly artificial metal object, reminiscent of tooth rails used in microscopes and electronics, was embedded within the coal. This discovery raises numerous perplexing questions. For starters, how could such an artifact, bearing a striking resemblance to modern technology, exist in a geological stratum dating back 300 million years? The Voice of Russia reported that when geologists examined the metal object, it exhibited an astonishing lightness and softness, consisting of 98% aluminum and 2% magnesium. These findings led to the unsettling implication that this was not a natural occurrence, but an artificial creation. What truly baffled researchers was the object's shape, resembling a contemporary tooth tooth wheel. The regularity of its structure, with 6 identical teeth, defied natural explanations. Once again, it's a conundrum that challenges our understanding of ancient technology, and who might have crafted such a device in a time when humans did not yet roam the earth? Speculation abounds, regarding the origin of this metal piece. Some suggest an extraterrestrial connection, given the artifact's anachronistic nature. However, not everybody is convinced. Geologist Sharon Hill, known as I Doubt It, dismissed the story as laughable. She questioned the lack of publication in scientific journals and the reliance on the discoverer's word. The notion of an alien origin for aluminum was met with skepticism. Despite the intrigue, the scientific community remains cautious, insisting on further tests and analysis to uncover the truth behind this perplexing find. Let me know in the comments what you think, by the way, because as usual, I'm on team alien artifact that should probably be left alone for our own goodwill. If it's been buried, or covered up, it's probably for a reason. Number 3, an alien body. Yep, Alexa talking about a corpse. Go figure. Did you expect anything less today? This tale takes place in Russia, and while I don't exactly recommend physically trying to travel there right now for, reasons, we shall take this trip virtually. Eugenia Popova of Petrozavodsk City first reported in 2011 that she had been keeping a frozen alien body in a refrigerator for a couple of years. Yeah, just casually. I have questions, like, was it next to the food? Was it a spare fridge? Was it in like a crisper? What did it smell like? Was it like baking soda? Did it help with the fridge? Like, curious minds need to know. Allegedly, she found it next to her summer house, so I suppose we can assume it was a fridge that wasn't used as much. Maybe it was like a garage fridge? On the day she discovered the body, Eugenia claimed that she was disturbed by a terrible noise that shook her from her sleep, describing it as deafening, screeching, and overpowering. As one does. She rushed outdoors and came across the boiling hot alien remains lying next to metal fragments. The creature was between 40 to 50 centimeters long, had a big head, mouth and orbits, and was wearing a one-piece garment of some sort. 2 days after going public with her story, Eugenia was visited by some people who confiscated the body for the purpose of investigation, and according to their words, took it to the Karelian Research Center of the Russian Academy of Sciences. However, employees of the research center, who were interviewed later, said they had never heard the story. I'm sensing an all too familiar government cover-up here. How about you folks at home? Honestly, if the photos weren't as convincing as they are, I probably wouldn't have included it in today's list, but I just couldn't tear my eyes from how strange it looks. Number 2, the original Roswell evidence. Yes, I reference it often, but it's truly one of the best examples of, alien proof that cannot be debunked as easily as some of the other older claims. And also, something that is not from this world. Rancher W.W. Mac Brazel had found wreckage on his property in Lincoln County, New Mexico, which is roughly 120 kilometers north of Roswell, sometime between mid-June and early July, describing it as rubber strips, tinfoil, and thick paper. The ranch had no phone and no radio, leaving Mac completely unaware of the ongoing, flying saucer craze at the time. So he gathered the debris and just pushed it under some brush to dispose of it. This was not the first instance of a flying disc spotting in the region, with several stories already being reported to the press that year. So on July 5th, Mac drove into Corona, where he heard stories of silvery flying discs, and 2 days later made the decision to bring the wreckage into the sheriff's office. The sheriff called in the Roswell Army Airfield, which assigned the matter to Major Jesse Marcel. Mac brought Major Marcel back to the debris site, and the two gathered up more of the pieces of the debris, with the Major taking the materials home. The next day, Public Information Officer for the Roswell Army, Walter Hunt, issued a press release stating that personnel from the field's 509th Operations Group had recovered a flying disc. On that same day, Major Marcel took the material to his base commander, Colonel William Blanchard, who reported the findings to General Roger Ramey at Fort Worth Army Airfield, FWAAF for short. Or FWAF. General Ramey ordered that the material be flown to Fort Worth immediately, leaving Marcel to board a B-29 Superfortress to make the flight. As soon as Marcel brought the material to General Ramey's office, both Ramey and his Chief of Staff, Colonel Thomas Dubose, identified the material as pieces of a weather balloon kite. The weather officer on duty explained to reporters that Ray wind devices were used at about 80 weather stations across the country. The balloons were attached to a 6-pointed reflective device that looked like a silver star, and after launch the balloon would expand with increasing altitude before bursting at around 60,000 feet, with pieces dispersing in their fall to the ground. After the initial newspaper reports of 1947, the Roswell incident faded from public attention for more than 30 years until the late 1970s, which brings us to February of 1978, when UFO researcher Stanton Friedman interviewed Major Marcel, whose statements contradicted those he made to the press in 1947, saying, they wanted some statements, but he had to keep his mouth shut at the time. And once again, General Ramey is the one who discussed everything to the newspapers and, to forget about it, saying it's nothing more than a weather observation balloon. Of course, both men knew differently. It wasn't a weather balloon. And after the United States congressional inquiries, the General Accounting Office actually launched an inquiry and directed the Office of the United States Secretary of the Air Force to conduct an internal investigation. A report released in 1994 concluded that the material recovered in 1947 was likely, keyword here, debris from now Project Mogul, so not a weather balloon. A little suspicious. A scholarly consensus emerged concluding that the military had decided to conceal the true purpose of the crash device, allegedly now nuclear test monitoring. The balloon had allegedly been launched from Alamogordo Army Airfield a month earlier, carrying a radar reflector and classified Project Mogul sensors. The Air Force reports were dismissed by UFO experts as being either disinformation or simply implausible. So while this has been debunked time and time again by a constantly lying government, I truly believe that these items were truly not from this world. Number 1. Mexico alien corpses. Yep, more corpses. Alrighty folks, we're ending today with the most recent case on our list, a display of bodies from September of this year. Now few cases are as captivating as this discovery of 2 tiny mummified figures found in Peru. Mexican journalist and UFO enthusiast Jamie Mawson passionately champions these beings as a pivotal moment in human history. With elongated heads and 3 fingers on each hand, they challenge our understanding of life on Earth. In the heart of Mexico City, in the district of Santa Fe, Mawson's office became a hub of intrigue. 2 closed boxes, their glass lids offering a tantalizing glimpse into the unknown, held these peculiar figures. As witnesses gathered around, their ancient appearance became apparent, as they possess 2 eyes, a mouth, 2 arms, and 2 legs. Mawson claims these beings, found near the always intriguing Nazca lines in 2017, are unlike anything the world has seen. Through social media and public presentations, Mawson provides a compelling case that these beings date back about 1,000 years, and they belong to no known earthly species. The assertion that one of them, possibly a female, contained eggs adds another layer of mystery. Now this man's crusade is driven by his belief that this discovery has the potential to unite humanity in the face of such profound questions. However, some skepticism looms. David Spergel, a former head of Princeton University's astrophysics department, calls for transparency and openness in testing these samples, welcoming scrutiny from the global scientific community. DNA and carbon dating tests shared on social media and in presentations provide supporting evidence for the otherworldly nature of said beings. The results claim a genetic composition that defies known terrestrial evolution, with 30% remaining a mystery. Carbon dating from the National Autonomous University of Mexico asserts that these beings are more than a millennium old, a finding that stirs curiosity. The figures themselves, shown at the hearing, exhibit humanoid features but with peculiar characteristics, such as retractable necks and long skulls reminiscent of avian traits. They also reportedly possess implants of rare metals, including osmium, one of Earth's scarcest elements. The question of how these figures arrived in Mexico remains shrouded in mystery, with the possession resting with an unidentified Mexican man who was present in Mawson's office. He offers a little explanation, promising to reveal the full story at an undisclosed time. Jose de Jesus Zalque Benitez, director of the Health Sciences Research Institute of the Secretary of the Navy, stands alongside Mawson, supporting his claims. Their interpretation of the scientific data raises profound questions about the origins of these beings. As Mawson and his team strive to push the boundaries of our understanding, the world watches, torn between skepticism and wonder, in the pursuit of answers that may forever alter our perception of, what the heck is on this planet?
Number 5. Avi Loeb. Harvard professor Avi Loeb and his team have undertaken a fascinating quest involving the potential discovery of alien technology fragments. Their journey takes us all the way back to 2014, when a meteor landed in the waters of Papua New Guinea. The pieces they collected from this mysterious visitor have raised intriguing questions. The US Space Command released a statement saying that there is a 99.999% certainty that these materials originated from another solar system. This revelation prompted a thorough investigation, with the government providing a 10-kilometer radius for the likely landing zone. Their calculations yielded a potential path for the meteor that remarkably aligned with the government's projected landing zone. They set sail, traversing the meteor's projected trajectory. An innovative approach involved combing the ocean floor using a sled with magnets attached. Their findings were nothing short of astonishing. They unearthed 10 nearly perfect spheres resembling metallic marbles. Under the microscope, these objects displayed a captivating array of colors: gold, blue, brown, and some even bearing a resemblance to miniature Earths. The composition analysis revealed that these minuscule spheres were mostly composed of iron with traces of silicon, magnesium, and titanium. What sets these findings apart from any other space rocks cataloged by NASA is their high material strength. The meteor was calculated to have moved at an astounding 60 kilometers per second, faster than almost all of the stars in the vicinity of our sun. The combination of material strength and speed has led Avi Loeb to entertain the possibility that these fragments might be remnants of a spacecraft from another civilization or from some unknown advanced technology. The research into these objects is still in its early stages, and the team aims to discover whether these objects are of artificial or natural origin. If they are natural, it would provide insight into the materials that exist beyond our solar system. If they're artificial, the theories and possibilities are staggering, as the objects would be hinting at the possibility of extraterrestrial visitors from planets far beyond what we know. Many believe that these spheres are just the beginning of discovery and may eventually guide scientists to a more substantial find. The spheres are crucial in helping locate and understand any significant remnants of the meteor, which could offer further answers surrounding its origin. Whatever answers are found will inevitably lead to an incredible new sense of understanding of what is past our known universe, whether it's found to be a rock or a strange technological artifact. Number 4. The Voynich Manuscript. Often dubbed as the world's most mysterious book, the Voynich Manuscript has baffled scholars, cryptographers, and supernatural enthusiasts for centuries. This 15th century book is filled with peculiar, undecipherable texts alongside intricate illustrations of unknown plants, strange creatures, and unidentifiable symbols. A wide range of theories have emerged in an attempt to decode its origin and purpose. One of the leading theories believes that the manuscript is a hoax, created to deceive anyone who finds it. The intricate, unique script has led some to believe it's an elaborate cipher, but despite extensive efforts from many people and linguistic experts, no one has been able to crack it. The drawings of unfamiliar plants have led some to think that it might be a botanical or medical text, containing knowledge for herbal remedies or alchemical recipes. Other theories suggest that the Voynich manuscript could be part of a genuine but now lost language. Some researchers believe it may have been written in a natural language and then encoded for secrecy. This idea is supported by the manuscript's linguistic characteristics, which appear consistent with language patterns. However, without a key to decipher the text, this remains speculative. There's also the theory, my favorite theory by the way, that believes the book belonged to extraterrestrial beings who spoke a completely unknown language, and the drawings and recipe depictions represent objects and wildlife that humans have never experienced. Why did the aliens leave this book with us? I'm not sure, but if this book teaches us anything, it's that we certainly do not understand aliens in the slightest, so we definitely wouldn't be able to assume their motive and reasoning. If the book is of alien origin, it would contain mounds of insight for what alien planets or languages look like. Number 3. The Antikythera mechanism. This mechanism is an ancient find that is thought to be the world's first analog computer. It was discovered in a shipwreck near the coast of Antikythera in 1901. The device's complexity and potential purpose have birthed several wild theories about its origin and function. One theory is that the mechanism was an astronomical calculator or some kind of ancient mechanical model of the stars in space. This theory is based on the numerous gears and dials within the device, which would have allowed it to track the positions of celestial bodies, including the sun and the moon. This would have been a valuable tool for ancient astronomers and philosophers in understanding the movements of our solar system. Others suggest it might have served as a navigational instrument, helping sailors determine their position at sea by predicting celestial events, suggesting that the complex nature of the mechanism could have been used to determine critical dates and times, assisting in navigation efforts and predicting astronomical events like eclipses. It has also been proposed that the mechanism was employed as an orrery, a device that demonstrates the motions of celestial bodies, or even as an educational tool, aiding in the teaching of astronomy and complex scientific concepts in ancient Greece. The device's exact purpose and the extent of its capabilities are still topics of passionate debate. The fact that it was created more than 2,000 years ago is a testament to the advanced knowledge and engineering skills of the ancient Greeks, or to the knowledge of an otherworldly being. While many questions about the mechanism remain unanswered, it continues to be a symbol of fascination, still inspiring research and exploration into its true nature and purpose. Number 2. The Crystal Skulls. The crystal skulls are a set of strange artifacts that have fascinated both archaeologists and conspiracy theorists for so many years. These crystal skulls are precisely what they sound like: human skull-shaped carvings made from various types of quartz crystal. Most of them date back to pre-Columbian South American civilizations, specifically the Aztec, Mixtec, and Maya. The theory surrounding these skulls is what continues to make them so popular and intriguing, and let me tell you, There are a lot of theories. Some people believe that the skulls are ancient relics with supernatural or extraterrestrial origins, while others think they possess mystical or healing powers. One popular theory is that the crystal skulls were created by advanced ancient civilizations that possessed knowledge far beyond what we currently assume and understand. Some parts of this theory suggests that these crystals hold the secrets of lost technologies and predictions about future events. Then, of course, there's the theory that suggests the skulls are linked to extraterrestrial beings. This theory further assumes that these artifacts were gifts or messages from ancient alien visitors to Earth, gifted with the intention to guide or enlighten the less advanced beings they had stumbled across. Humans. Skeptics, however, assume that these crystal skulls are simply modern creations, likely made during the late 1800s or the early 1900s, and then were falsely aged so they would appear as ancient artifacts. Some well-documented forgeries and the absence of oh my god, not this word again, and the absence of context from many of these skulls do add a lot of substance to skeptics' beliefs. Despite this, the mystery surrounding the crystal skulls continue to capture the imaginations of curious minds and fuel a lot of debates about their origins, purpose, and theorized mystical properties. Whether they're being viewed as ancient relics, products of elaborate hoaxes, or otherworldly symbols, the crystal skulls have become a fascinating and intriguing find for the world of archaeology. Number 1. The Baghdad Battery. The Baghdad Battery is a strange historical puzzle that has raised questions about the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations. The battery was discovered near Baghdad, Iraq, and dates back to around 2,000 years ago, consisting of a clay jar, a copper tube, and an iron rod. What makes this find so confusing and perplexing is the fact that it dates back around 2,000 years, yet it resembles something extremely modern, a battery. However, before we get too carried away with visions of ancient Mesopotamians charging their smartphones, it's important to note that the true purpose of the battery remains unknown and highly debated. The basic concept is that it could generate a small electric current if filled with an acidic solution. Some researchers believe it may have had a more mundane purpose, like electroplating, which is a technique that's used in modern days to apply a thin layer of metal to objects. Others believe that it was an early form of medical treatment, possibly for pain relief, but there's no evidence that definitively confirms that the battery was created for this, and it isn't linked to any significant electrical advancements in ancient times, which, you know, we would probably notice. But then that begs the question, is it even human? If it was truly human, why wasn't the technology spread throughout the world? Every technological advancement made throughout history was quickly spread through thousands of communities. A battery would not have just been disregarded. Even if it was mistaken or called a form of magic, people would still uncover it. It would have still been spread. So that leads me to think this was not a human creation. Otherworldly civilizations could be thousands of years ahead of us in advancements. If this battery was from them, honestly, it would kind of make a lot more sense than it being a battery used by humans.
Number 5. Russian mountain coils. In 1991, amid the rugged terrain of the Ural Mountains in Russia, researchers stumbled upon a perplexing enigma that defied the boundaries of known human history and technology. In geological surveys conducted along the banks of Russian rivers, hundreds of minuscule coil-shaped artifacts emerged from the depths of the earth, buried between 10 and 40 feet below the surface. These bizarre findings, some as small as 1/10,000th of an inch, were a perplexing anomaly, challenging the very foundations of our understanding of ancient civilizations and technological progress. What made these coils even more confounding was their estimated age, which could range between a staggering 20,000 to a mind-boggling 318,000 years old, which predates humanity. These artifacts span a remarkable size spectrum, with the largest measuring approximately 1.18 inches or 3 centimeters in length, and the smallest a 2.5 micrometers, 40 times less wide than a human hair. What's equally astonishing is their composition. While the larger coils were constructed from copper, the smaller ones were fashioned from tungsten. These are materials not typically associated with prehistoric craftsmanship. The shapes and intricacies of these tiny coils defy the notion that they could be naturally occurring phenomena. Instead, they eerily resemble components of modern nanotechnology, a realm of science and engineering far removed from the technological capabilities of any known ancient civilization. This peculiar characteristic has ignited a contentious debate among scholars and scientists alike. The central question surrounding these artifacts is whether they provide evidence of an advanced, possibly extraterrestrial, civilization that once inhabited Earth, or if they are remnants of some other intelligence, possibly not native to our planet. Contemporary scientific understanding dictates that the level of technological advancement displayed by these artifacts vastly surpasses what should have been possible in an era dating back hundreds of thousands of years. While some skeptics have proposed that these coils might be debris from test rockets launched from the nearby Pleist space station, an extensive report from the Moscow Institute dispelled this notion by conclusively dating the objects as far too ancient to have any connection to modern manufacturing processes. Even today, these baffling artifacts continue to elude comprehensive explanation, shrouding their origin in mystery. Though studied at research facilities in Helsinki, St. Petersburg, and Moscow, further research into these microscopic wonders appears to have halted with the untimely death of Dr. Johannes Feebag, a leading investigator of the discovery in 1999. Intriguing and enigmatic, these Russian mountain coils beckon us to ponder the uncharted territories of human history and the possibility that, in the depths of time, there may exist secrets and civilizations far more advanced and ancient than we could ever have imagined. Did our planet host a forgotten society that harnessed nanotechnology in the distant past, or are these coils remnants of a visitation from beings not of this earth? This quest to decipher the riddle continues, pushing the boundaries of our understanding of both our planet's history and the cosmos beyond. Next up at number 4, the Antikythera mechanism. The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient Greek device that was used to calculate and display astronomical information, such as the positions of the sun and the moon, the phases of the moon, the dates of eclipses, and the cycles of the Olympic Games. It is considered to be the oldest known example of an analog computer, and its complexity and sophistication are unparalleled in the ancient world. But how did such a device come to be? Who designed it and built it, and for what purpose? These questions have puzzled historians and scientists for decades, and some have proposed a radical answer. The Antikythera mechanism could be of alien origin. One theory is that the Antikythera mechanism was not invented by humans, but by extraterrestrial visitors who came to Earth in ancient times and shared their advanced knowledge with some of the civilizations they encountered. I mean, these guys weren't even wearing underwear, but were expected to believe they could invent computers? Yeah, right. According to this theory, the aliens who visited Earth were interested in astronomy and astrology, and they taught the Greeks how to build a device that could model the movements of the celestial bodies and predict their future positions. The Antikythera mechanism was then either a gift from the aliens or a copy made by the Greeks based on the alien technology. Another theory is that the Antikythera mechanism was not a product of human or alien engineering, but a natural artifact that was formed by cosmic processes and fell to Earth as a meteorite. According to this theory, the Antikythera mechanism is a piece of an ancient alien spacecraft or satellite that was orbiting around the solar system and was destroyed by a collision or an explosion. The fragments of the alien device were scattered across space, and some of them landed on Earth as meteorites. The Antikythera mechanism was then one of these fragments, which happened to contain a complex system of gears and dials that could simulate the solar system. Both theories are based on the assumption that the Antikythera mechanism is too advanced and complex to have been made by humans in ancient time, and that it must have a non-human origin. However, there is no conclusive evidence to support either theory, and most scholars reject them as pseudoscientific and speculative. The Antikythera mechanism remains a mystery, but is also a testament to the ingenuity and creativity of human civilization. And at number 3, elongated skull. The elongated skull, found by researchers and studied at NYU in 2017, is one of the most mysterious and intriguing artifacts from the ancient world. It was discovered in a tomb near the city of Nazca, Peru, along with other human remains and pottery. The skull is estimated to be about 2,000 years old, and it has a cranial volume that is 25% larger than that of a normal human skull. It also has an unusual shape, with a pointed forehead and a flattened back. Some experts have suggested that the skull is the result of artificial cranial deformation, a practice that was common among some cultures in South America, Africa, and Eurasia. This practice involved binding the head of a child with cloth wood, or metal to alter its shape for aesthetic or social reasons. However, other experts have challenged this explanation, arguing that the skull shown signs of natural growth and development, and that its shape cannot be replicated by any known method of cranial deformation. They also have pointed out that the skull has only one parietal plate instead of two, which is a rare genetic trait that is not related to cranial deformation. Some of these experts have proposed a more radical theory, that the skull could be of alien origin. They have speculated that the skull belongs to a hybrid offspring of a human and an extraterrestrial being, or that it was left behind by an alien visitor who came to Earth in ancient times. They have cited various sources of evidence to support this theory, such as the presence of DNA anomalies in the skull, the similarity of the skull to depictions of alien beings in ancient art and mythology, and the connection of Nazca to other mysterious phenomena, such as the Nazca lines and the Paracas skulls. The mystery of the elongated skull remains unsolved, and it continues to fascinate and puzzle researchers and enthusiasts alike. It is a remarkable example of the diversity and complexity of human culture and biology, as well as the possibility of life beyond Earth. But what do you guys think? Alien skull or just an anomaly? Let me know in the comments. Number 2. London Hammer. The London Hammer is a mysterious artifact that was allegedly found in London, Texas in 1936 by a local couple who noticed a piece of wood sticking out of a rock. When their son broke the rock open, he revealed an iron hammerhead attached to the wooden handle. The hammerhead was remarkably well preserved and showed no signs of rust or corrosion. The rock, however, was dated to be from the Lower Cretaceous period, about 65 to 135 million years ago. How could a man-made tool be encased in such an ancient rock? Could it be of alien origin? One theory that suggests an extraterrestrial explanation for the London Hammer is that it was part of an alien spacecraft or satellite that crashed on Earth millions of years ago. The impact could have caused the metal fragments to be embedded in the rock, which then formed a concretion around them over time. The hammer could have been a tool used by the aliens for repairing or maintaining their vehicle, or a weapon for defense or offense. The aliens could have either died in the crash or left the site without retrieving their belongings. Another theory that proposes an alien connection for the London Hammer is that it was brought to Earth by ancient astronauts who visited our planet in prehistoric times and interacted with some of the early human civilizations. The hammer could have been a gift from the aliens or a copy made by the humans based on the alien technology. The hammer could have been used for various purposes, such as construction, mining, or ritual. The hammer could have been lost or buried by its owners and later fossilized by natural processes. Both theories are based on the assumption that the London Hammer is too advanced and complex to have been made by humans in ancient times, and that it must have a non-human origin. The mystery of the London Hammer remains unsolved, and it continues to fascinate and puzzle researchers and enthusiasts alike. It is a remarkable example of the possibility and challenge of finding evidence of alien life on Earth. And at number 1, interstellar marbles. In 2014, a fireball shrieked across the sky and exploded over the South Pacific Ocean near Papua New Guinea. The event was detected by US military satellites, but it was not until 2022 that NASA confirmed that the object was an interstellar meteor, meaning that it came from outside our solar system. This was the first known case of an interstellar object colliding with Earth, and it sparked the curiosity of many scientists, especially Avi Lieb, a Harvard physicist and the head of the Galileo project, which aims to search for evidence of extraterrestrial civilizations. Lieb decided to investigate the crash site of the interstellar meteor, which he dubbed IM-1, and see if he could find any debris from it. He hired a ship equipped with a magnetic sled that could dredge the ocean floor and collect any metallic fragments. After several days of searching, he was astonished to find hundreds of tiny spherical iron balls, each about half a millimeter in diameter. He called them marbles and claimed that they were material from IM-1. But what makes these marbles so mysterious and potentially alien? Lieb argued that they were unlike any natural or artificial material known to exist in our solar system. He said that they had a very high density, about twice that of iron, and they contained traces of uranium and lead, which are rare elements in space. He also said that they had a very smooth surface, suggesting that they were not formed by melting or erosion, but by some other process. He speculated that they could be part of an alien spacecraft or probe that was sent to explore our solar system, and that they could contain information or technology that could reveal the nature and origin of their creators. The debate over the marbles is still ongoing, and it may take a long time before a consensus is reached. However, one thing is certain. The discovery of IM-1 and its debris has opened a new window into the mysteries of interstellar space, and has challenged us to rethink our place and role in the cosmos. Whether they are natural or artificial, terrestrial or alien, the marbles are a reminder that we are not alone in this vast universe.
Number 5 on this list is a cannon. Hong Kong is pretty much surrounded by water. Their entire culture is very connected to the water with fishing and boats. That's why finding things in the water isn't totally shocking. However, when that thing is a super heavy, super old cannon, then it's a tad bit more interesting. History Things says experts believe that this discovery might lead them to uncover more hidden treasures beneath the harbor city. Bill Jeffrey, the archaeologist working with Hong Kong's Underwater Heritage Group, comments that we see this as the tip of the iceberg. The Hong Kong SAR is 60% water, and yet nearly no archaeology has been done underwater here. The granite stock, which is known as the cross piece that can be found on most anchors, was around 6 feet long. This piece lay 10 feet below water and was situated near Hong Kong's High Island. After investigating this ancient maritime artifact, experts have discovered that this granite stock dates back between 960 to 1278 AD. This anchor fits the exact style and material that would have been used during China's Song Dynasty. I think what makes this so mysterious is that comment about how hardly any of the water has been explored for archaeology. Finding something like this underwater as they did can only mean one thing. Either somebody partied a little too hard 1,000 years ago and decided that taking a cannon out in the middle of the ocean and throwing it overboard was a good idea, or, and much more realistically, there are more archaeological finds to be had underwater. Who knows how many things they could discover just lying at the bottom of the ocean. Number 4 on this list is a tiny bird. Okay, so I'll be honest folks, this one isn't super mysterious, but it did come from China and it is wicked cool. The artifact is a very small bird sculpture, literally so tiny that you could probably fit 20 of them in one hand. It's made from blackened bone and doesn't really look like much. Just a very basic bird potentially sitting atop of a perch. So what makes this thing so special and why has it made our list? Well, this little bird is pretty freaking old. This tiny sculpture of a bird discovered at Lingjing, China is 13,500 years old. We're talking about something that is hundreds to thousands of generations older than we are right now. This Paleolithic bird, being the ripe young age of 13,500 years, is the oldest discovered 3D piece of art in all of East Asia. The way that it's made also indicates that there are a lot more of these little guys to be found. How smooth the sculpture is shows that this wouldn't have been a one-off from the artist and they knew what they were doing. I guarantee that whoever made this that many years ago couldn't even begin to comprehend that their tiny sculpture would make for a talking point on a YouTube video this many years later, and honestly, that's pretty cool. Number 3 on this list is bronze vessels. Indiana University says that these bronze vessels were found in tombs and were made for use in rites performed on ancestral altar or cast specifically for burial with the dead. Only Chinese kings and high-ranking nobility could afford such expensive and labor-intensive artifacts which required a knowledge of mining, smelting, metallurgy, and casting to execute. From Shang Dynasty records comprised of some 200,000 inscriptions on bone and turtle shells, we know that Chinese ancestors were procreated with elaborate rites, feasts, and sacrifices. If ancestors were displeased with the activities of their descendants or the rituals offered to them, they might fail to act on their progeny's behalf or even cause their descendants harm. This could come in the form of poor harvests, droughts, or famine. The Chinese believed in a complex world of spirits which comprised a multitude of nature deities, royal ancestors, and others who controlled important earthly phenomena such as weather, harvests, births, deaths, and military campaigns. So it's pretty clear that these bronze vessels played a role in the rituals the Chinese performed with their dead, but the passage also leads me to believe that they may have been involved in causing people to die in the first place. These are ritualistic artifacts, and considering the Chinese believed in a complex world of spirits, I don't think it's unrealistic to think that they may have used these in rituals to curse someone with a poor harvest or even death. To use these bronze vessels in appealing to a deity and have that deity help them with their current issue. Of course, I'm only speculating here, and the exact use of these things in rituals will probably remain a mystery. Number 2 on this list is the Sangsuidu masks. The Sangsuidu masks are some of the most recent and most mysterious discoveries that archaeologists have made in China in quite some time. Aaron Reich says, remains of a gold mask dating back 3,000 years were found in a huge treasure trove of artifacts discovered at an archaeological site in China's Sichuan province, which sheds more light on an ancient civilization that remains mysterious to historians. The mask consists of around 84% gold, measures 28 centimeters high and 23 centimeters wide, and weighs about 280 grams, according to the English Language Daily reported. But according to Lei Yu, head of the Sangzui Di site excavation team, the whole mask would weigh over half a kilogram. If a whole mask like this was found, it wouldn't just be the largest and heaviest gold object from that period found in China, but the heaviest gold object found from that time period anywhere. The mask remains one of over 500 artifacts found in the cache at the site. The Sichuan province is one of the most mysterious provinces in China. These masks are gorgeous too and look to be extremely valuable. No one currently knows what they were used for. Something this beautiful has to be connected to royalty or to some sort of ancient and important ritual. Potentially something that someone might wear when performing a ritual that would connect them to a god or some other deity. Very little is known about this dynasty and their practices, so sadly these masks and what they were used for will also remain a mystery. And finally, number 1 on this list is the Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army has got to be the most famous Chinese artifacts to have ever been discovered. There's just simply nothing in the world that comes close to rivaling their uniqueness. Chinese workers digging a well in 1974 made a startling discovery: thousands of life-size terracotta figures of an army prepared for battle. Now called the Terracotta Army or Terracotta Warriors, the figures are located in 3 pits near the city of Xi'an in China's Shaanxi province. After the warriors were discovered, the site became a museum and a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987. The pits are situated less than 1 mile to the northeast of a pyramid-shaped mausoleum constructed for the first emperor of China, Xi Zhangquang. According to UNESCO World Heritage Center, archaeologists suspect that the unexcavated tomb could contain an entire replica of the city of Xi'an, which the warriors guard. The 3 pits contain an estimated 8,000 life-size terracotta figures, of which about 2,000 have been excavated. The figures were created to serve the emperor in the afterlife and include a mix of chariots, cavalry, armored soldiers, and archers. There are high-ranking officers, and one of the pits, number 3 actually, served as a command post for the army and contains an honor guard and ornate chariot for the force's chief commander. All 3 pits are active archaeological sites and visitors can see excavations taking place. Maybe the most mysterious thing about all of this is what is in the unexcavated tomb that they're guarding. Based on how the tomb is situated, it's currently impossible to go inside without destroying some of the history, and this is why it remains unsearched. But one has to imagine that whatever is inside of it could be extremely valuable. Whatever is in that unopened tomb warranted the building of over 8,000 statues to guard it. I don't know if I've ever done anything 8,000 times, let alone build extremely intricate statues. Hit me with a comment down below on what you believe these ancient soldiers are actually guarding.
Number 5, the Ambushed Man painting. Yeah, at first I thought this whole thing was a hoax, but checks off all the right boxes, doesn't it? Artist is an unknown painter, there's real blood mixed in with the paint. The artist then took their own life after they finished the painting. Sounds a bit made up. Well, the original owner, Sean Robinson, claims that his grandmother was the one who actually inherited this painting and gave it to him, saying that there was real blood mixed into this. Okay. His grandmother had claimed that the picture had always seemed to be attached to evil, and even saw a dark figure resembling a man always standing around the painting. After having strange things happen around Sean's house, he too said that he started seeing a shadowy figure, almost like a man now, standing at the bottom of his bed night after night. Sean decided to reach out to Ed and Lorraine Warren, paranormal investigators from Connecticut. He tried keeping the painting around at one point, even tried to sell it online, but for some reason it never sold. Sean said the painting became too dangerous and things were getting worse around the house, and decided to give the Warrens the painting for safekeepings. Good idea, Sean. They have the painting locked away in their basement at their home, aka the occult museum for everything haunted. The painting is kept out of sight and no one is allowed to even look at it in person, for it draws evil energy, right? What do you think? I mean, the more I look at this thing, the more it scares the hell out of me. It is jarring. Number 4, Devil's Rocking Chair. I love a good rocking chair. Something soothing about it, you know? All the motion. Very relaxing. Rocking chairs. Rocking on their own, however. No, I don't do that at all. And this one is supposed to be you know whose. personal chair. The Devil's Rocking Chair, which was bought for $67,000 from Ed and Lorraine Warren's site, is in the care of one Zach Baggins. This guy runs a haunted museum in Vegas and purchased the chair understanding fully what it does and is. The chair, originally used in the exorcism of David Glatzel in the 80s by the Warrens themselves, a true case involving murder and demonic possession. A true case. Some have seen a beast sitting in the chair, some have seen a dark, shadowy man. And the horrifying part? Baggins had to shut down his exhibit in 2019 because the chair was causing guests to have emotional breakdowns and episodes. One guest even passed out walking directly above the chair on the staircase. Slowly started to become a safety hazard, and Zach decided to remove the newest haunted item from his exhibit completely. Before Zach put the rocking chair in his exhibit, he said the only day it was in his home, him and a friend both had a very strange breakdown. Both of them crying uncontrollably and even speaking religious sayings obsessively. Number 3, Thomas Busby Chair. I thought it would definitely be more like skulls and dolls and stuff, but it seems so far that it's pretty much only furniture holds evil spirits. How about that? Another chair. Haunted, of course, and this tale is a chilling one. Not like the others aren't. The Thomas Busby Stoop Chair, or also famously known as Dead Man's Chair, is said to be a cursed object from the owner himself, Mr. Busby. This hardwood, allegedly haunted oak chair was cursed by the murderer Thomas Busby before his execution hanging in 1702 in North Yorkshire, England. Thomas Busby was arrested, tried, and condemned to death after he murdered his father-in-law, Daniel Audie, in 1702. Audie and Busby were running a coin counterfeiting business. After an argument about the business, Busby killed Audie. One variation of this story has Busby cursing the chair while on his way to the execution, whereas another says he was drunk in the chair that he was arrested in and cursed it right then and there. Due to the many deaths later attributed to people sitting in the chair, the landlord donated it to the Thirsk Museum in the same town where it is having difficulty with guests sitting on top of it. It now stays hung above the floor near the ceiling where no one can even sit on it. That's good. Numerous deaths have been linked to this chair, from soldiers not returning home from war, to delivery drivers crashing their trucks hours later, to people even having strokes and heart attacks sitting in it. Death seems to be imminent anywhere this thing goes. It's been hung up since 2014 and remains there today. Number 2. The Cursed Mirror. Originally sitting in the main foyer in its 17th century antebellum home in Louisiana, this haunted object has been witness to some nasty history. The Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana is the home to deep-rooted slavery. The American South is known for its disgusting use of slave labor and would be the home in which this haunted piece sits. The house owned first by Mr. and Mrs. Clark Woodruff. These were racist plantation owners, and violent ones at that. It is said that the couple were very sadistic towards abuse of the slaves. A young woman by the name of Chloe was particularly abused when eavesdropping on a conversation Woodruff was having one night, resulting in him cutting both of her ears off. That's so unnecessary. Her mutilation was hidden, but Chloe planned her revenge quickly and decided to poison a cake which Mrs. Woodruff and her 2 children would be eating. She killed all 3 of them and was caught, tried, and hanged for her crime. It is Chloe's ghost in which experts say haunts the cursed mirror from the plantation. Ghostly women are seen in the mirror walking by, and smudged handprints are always seen, even with new trimmings and polished glass. The cursed mirror is believed to have Chloe's spirit trapped inside of it. By gazing into the mirror, evil things apparently would happen, resulting in health problems. Weird things happen around this mirror, and where it lays now, that's Ed and Lorraine's business. Ed and Lorraine are taking care of it, of course, thank God, and it sits in the couple's occult museum in Connecticut. Ungazable. Today, the Myrtles Plantation has been changed into a bed and breakfast, but still remains one of America's most haunted houses. What do you think? And coming in at number 1, Annabelle. Possibly the most infamous and dangerous possessed artifact found at the home of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Their occult museum is the home of the Annabelle doll. We know a little bit about this doll, of course, with all the films about her in the last couple years. Tons of people have flocked to the museum to take pics in front of her vase. She rests inside a glass case ominously marked "Warning. Positively do not touch." Warned. She was previously owned by a nursing student, Donna, in 1970. Gifted from her mother from a thrift store. After some creepy incidents involving the doll like levitating onto the table and moving around by itself, she took the doll to a medium who revealed it is possessed by the spirit of a little girl who died young. Ed and Lorraine were eventually called after the incidents would not stop, and they offered to take it to their home. However, this is the scary part on the drive home. Ed himself said that the doll was making the car do things out of his control. Stuffed in a bag, doused in holy water, he still felt the presence. The engine kept turning off, power steering would all of a sudden lock up. The hardest part was getting it into a safe locked case in their museum, where it's been ever since. Thank goodness. The doll holds evil power and demonic possession, Lorraine says, and she refuses to even make eye contact with it. Yeah, you know it's bad when they won't even look it in the eye, huh? The museum unfortunately has been shut down since 2019, but the cursed objects still seem to be staying put. Thank goodness.